Okay. Let's see what happens here.
There you go.
Oh. Okay. Are we live? We're live. Okay. I'm going to just share this out a bit to other Facebook pages, and if either of you guys want to do that also. We are here with John Papa again with 1P. He is an IT security expert, I'm going to call you. You can fill in more of the blanks there. But we're going to be going over the DNC leak versus hack thing again. And it's still not solved. So, it is 2 years later, but it's not too late to be talking about it. There have been some recent things, I think, that have come up. Recent being the last few months. Okay. Wait, where are we? I know we're here. That's odd. Okay. Just a sec. What did we mark? What happened here? That is very strange. Okay, hang on. I think we're having another Facebook issue. Why is that not there? Reload this page. What is going on here? Okay, I don't think we're live on the CFAR page. It's very strange. I thought we were. So I may have to stop and start again. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, I'm just going to start again. Okay, there it goes, I think. Okay, I think we're live. Facebook is always last to come on. Right. Okay, so this is going to be open forum, meaning I will post the Zoom link. I know it's getting late, at least on the East Coast, but I will post the Zoom link. Here we are. Okay. We are live now, finally. In all of the places. All right. So if you want to join, please do. We're going to be talking about my annoying dog. Let's see. Leak. Okay. Okay. All right. So, where should we start? I think most people that might be listening, at least I know in the Truth Bomb activist page, really listened to a lot of the whistleblowers that have come out and said that the evidence points more to a leak than a hack. We're talking about the DNC leak versus hack, because we have like Bill Binney and Ray McGovern and a lot of pretty well-known, respected whistleblowers that have come out and said, that's their analysis based on things that they've been told by IT experts. Now, if anyone's familiar with the two articles that came out in The Nation, there was basically that VIPS group, which is the Veterans Intelligence for Sanity, which is McGovern and Binney and Kiriakou and a lot of them. But there was also a group that they were basically the VIPS dissenters, and that included Thomas Drake, Jesselyn Raddick, Lisa Ling, who's been kind enough to interact with me a bit on Twitter, I just, wanted her opinion on things. And she originally kind of, I don't want to say sided with, but said that, the VIPS group, the leak could there was some validity to that. But then she kind of switched later because I guess it was, her analysis is that neither one is conclusive, leak or hack. And it kind of sounds like, John, that's kind of the conclusion you've come to also. But
yeah, I mean, based on the data that they're looking at and how they're looking at it, it would be my position that there's more variables that could lead into to make it look like what they're the assumptions that they're making. Like, say, for instance, I was listening to the YouTube Bill Benny, and he displays the files. He says they're on the Guccifer 2 site, and they do their analysis by looking at the timestamps on those files and comparing the delta between the timestamps and saying that then shows the manner of transport. But I mean, there's all sorts of variables here. What if Guccifer 2, if that is even real, what if he moved them to his server that he made public with a USB? It would demonstrate the same file marks. He said it was 49.1 megabytes a second. That's slower than USB, the slowest USB. That would be FireWire speed. So there's also something there.
Wait, hold on a sec, because and I'm going to be the one that's going to ask the "Are you smarter than a fifth grader?" questions here, because I don't know IT very well. I mean, I know basic stuff, but so I'm just going to ask the dumb questions. So there's been a lot of focus on that it was about the download speed, that it had to have been to a thumb drive because it was too too fast or too slow to be over the internet?
Too fast.
Too fast. Okay, so what did you just say, though? You just threw me off.
Okay, so they're looking at the timestamps as are displayed on the repository where Guccifer 2 purportedly made these files available. So, one, we're now one step removed, not only from the server that they were taken from, but perhaps from the server that they were, let's say in the case, the proposition that you're saying it's a hack. And using the terms hack versus leak, hack is implying that the person from the outside is penetrating and compromising the machine, doing something on that machine to collect the payload, and then transporting that back to themselves. So this is basically assuming that Guccifer 2 hacked from, or it's basically saying that the files here, as they're displayed, they're saying because of the time deltas between the timestamps, the amount that they're calculating as the download speed. So he's saying because of that, it can't be that they were drawn, and this is the conclusion they're making, and I just disagree with it. He's saying they can't be drawn then over the internet. So basically in that, then looking at this hack proposal, that's like saying that they're drawing these files one at a time. I mean, if I was a hacker, I would group all the files together in an archive and transport it that way, right? It kind of, it's making just, there's so many assumptions that are being made, and then a conclusion is being drawn from all those assumptions. You just can't see that. What if the files on the original server were moved from a USB to that directory? They would then demonstrate the times that they're saying, because the timestamps are preserved or can be preserved, or it's an option, like a tar file option, a -p, you can preserve the timestamp. So it could be that these are the original timestamps as these files were loaded onto the original server. They were archived up together, and then when the archive was exploded, was unarchived into the directory, the timestamps were retained. And that's saying that the timestamps aren't a ploy, perhaps to make you think that this was a leak versus a hack. You can use the touch command and change those timestamps. It's very easy to manipulate creation time and last access time and stuff like that. So all I'm saying is that there's way too many variables because you're so far removed from the original server to be drawing these hard conclusions. It is one possibility. I mean, what I like to do is I break it up into the components. The access, the compromise, is it a insider access, or is it an outside penetration using some archaic method like a buffer overflow or whatever? So take that out of the equation, and then on the other side of that, it would be the transport. How was the data then moved back, right? If it's an insider, sure, he might be putting it on a USB stick and sticking it in his sock or something and walking out of the skiff or wherever he's going from. If it's a hack over a wire, and they are drawing the files one at a time, you would see some kind of delta between the file creation on the destination like that. But I can't quite imagine that somebody is hacked in and they're doing some kind of copy command or something like that. It would be more efficient to ball up everything you want to take and move it in a large chunk or something like that. The speeds also, like I mentioned, it's slower than USB. It's slower than old USB. So I'm wondering what kind of server was it drawn from? How is it drawn, right? And the destination. This Bill Benny, and it's good. It's good to question these things and to bring up all the possibilities, but it's making the assumption that that directory that he's displaying is the destination direct from the server that was hacked or compromised or leaked from, and like that. And I can't imagine that either. I mean,
okay, so let me back up just a little bit because I think most people know the story, but I just want to go back over a little bit. So first of all, we all know that so the DNC didn't allow, or the FBI didn't insist, or whatever, to see the DNC servers. So it seems like we'd have some more clear answers if that had happened.
Oh, very true.
So
at those times, you could tell if people are employing, we don't even know what operating system is on the DNC server, right?
Right.
If they're employing a sudo or some kind of access control mechanism, you'd see access at times. There could be some kind of access control in the directories where these things are stored, where you can see what files are accessed and what times, what user was logged in to do that, what process perhaps accessed those things, if it's some kind of rogue process that was launched on the server. So there's just too many variables. You're too far away from the original server to be making any hard and fast conclusions.
And so why was this become national security? I mean, it was a national security issue, and we're now in basically, a Cold War situation again. How did a private company, the DNC, a private entity, just say, no, we're not going to let you see see the server? That seems to be the obvious failure. And this is one of the major reasons why we don't trust, a lot of us don't buy the Russia narrative, because Russia hacked the DNC narrative, because they seem at every of course we have WikiLeaks, but we have every step of the way them seemingly getting in the way of things being examined and just trying to hide stuff. So, that doesn't exactly lead to people trusting things. Even if everything CrowdStrike did was on the level, the fact is that it just doesn't seem like, it shouldn't have gone that way. Now, one of the things that, so it's Lisa Ling, and I don't like talking about people when they're not here, but she didn't want to join. She said there's no new information, and so there's no point in sort of going over and over it again. But again, I think we were still off the air when I mentioned it. She was one of the VIP's dissenters, on the other side, and said it wasn't conclusive. But she mentioned something about server images. And someone else told me that it came out a couple months ago. I'm just kind of starting to dig back into it, but that there had been some report of some server images being handed over from CrowdStrike to the FBI. Now, the question then becomes, can those be altered? And were they in fact, I don't even know, I haven't found that yet. I haven't found proof of that yet. If anybody knows.
I mean, what do they mean by server image? Is that a DD copy, a bit-for-bit copy of what was on the disk? Is it mirrored disk and they broke the mirror and handed off the mirror? See, there's just so many variables here.
Right.
We need specifics to get really down to what's going on. I believe what CrowdStrike investigated and what they reported, but I don't think they were talking about the transport method coming out of the server, just that it was compromised through a phish, I think was their conclusion, a phishing activity.
Right.
But we don't know the transport. I mean, it could be a combination of things. You could have an outsider that compromised. You could have an outsider and an insider. We just don't know. We're just too far removed to be making any hard and fast conclusions.
Yeah, and so we may never know the truth, and the public just doesn't buy what our intelligence agencies say anymore, just on face value. I mean, we just don't have that trust anymore. So I don't know.
What have our intelligence agencies said other than Grizzly's Steep report?
Well, I mean, as I understand it, I'm not the tech person here, but the Guccifer 2.0, that could have been, that it didn't make sense that there are all these Russian fingerprints there, that seemed like it was like planted there, because that's any hacker wouldn't have just left that, like that was maybe fabricated. I mean, we can go back to weapons of mass destruction of why we don't trust what our intelligence agencies tell us. I mean, I just think that a lot of the public, because of all of this secrecy and because of past things, people just don't buy it like they used to. There's a lot of distrust, and I think rightfully so. We should question things and demand evidence when it's this level of seriousness, a national security issue. So, but
the facts. Put the facts out there. I mean, right. I'm looking at this at the directory listing that Bill Benny used, and
where is that? Is that in
that YouTube that you sent me?
Oh, okay. What he was talking about there on the live.
So he has a screenshot of files as he's talking about calculating the delta between them. Well, the last two files are 4 hours later. So how does that roll into the proposal that these things are moved to a USB and that's how they were transported?
Okay, so that was one of the things that was sent to me. And again, I'm just going to admit my own bias here that I think it sounds, I lean more towards leak, but I just want the facts. So anyway, one of the things that was sent to me was there was an article put out by a journalist by the name of Duncan Campbell, saying it was outing a person that's written about this more, who goes by Adam Carter, and he doxed this person and said it's really someone else, this hacker in the UK. I don't see how that negates all of his analysis. But one of the things he said was that when he was with Bill Binney, that they went over this stuff with the speeds, and that Bill Binney changed his mind about that. But then later I don't really know what the truth is there, because apparently then later Bill Binney said, no, I didn't change my mind on that. So I don't know. There's all this.
All we need is the facts, right? Just lay it out, show the data, say, and then we can close all the variables here. But again, like I said, it could be as much as it was moved to a USB from, perhaps the DNC was hacked over time to a intermediate machine that, let's say, Guccifer's primary hacking workstation, right, in his secret location, wherever. Right, and then he gathers all these files, because he probably didn't burst them out of the machine. I mean, that would be obvious, right? Drain all the bandwidth. Everyone would notice that. So he probably trickled them out. And then, so they trickle out to some other intermediate machine. And then he takes all those files and he moves them onto his USB, brings them to the outside to his public machine, and then unloads them there. That would demonstrate the same signature of transporting them with a USB that they're claiming is a leak. It would look the same way.
Okay, so the Guccifer then, do you believe that, I mean, what I just said about some of the analysis, I've mainly heard Ray McGovern say it, that Guccifer, that the Russian fingerprints, that could have been planted. Do you believe this is Christine. She goes by the Natural Progressive, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I saw you in Uphill Media Chat a couple weekends ago, and then I realized we followed each other on Twitter, but I don't think we've ever actually talked. So
I followed you on YouTube for a little bit too. I haven't watched for a while, but I noticed I was already subscribed to your channel.
Oh, okay. I know there's so much noise out there, but what we try to do is really not a show. We just have discussions, and we try.
I like that.
Yeah, we love to keep it as open as possible, and we're trying. Brian, this is probably the first time we've put Zoom link in YouTube in a while, right? Because we did have a problem with.
You can delete it now that I'm on. You can delete it.
Well, we could, yeah. We'll give it a shot. We wanted to really get into some of this and let the expert talk, but I'm all about like letting everyone, have their say. We just had a problem with trolls and people posting 4 windows
I'm not a troll. I was just looking at the chat after the Uphill Media thing today, and there was something about pushing all your buttons, and I really was curious what were pushed and why, and was it me?
No. It was some of the talk about yellow vest, because I have a lot of concern, but maybe we could get to that in a minute. I don't want to interrupt John, but it was about yellow vest being we know that that movement's going to be attacked by the mainstream media and try to be discredited. So I was just concerned about whatever information's coming out about that now. That people in
that's my kind of evolution is that you shouldn't really discourage any yellow vest movement. Just kind of try to push them in the right direction, because the numbers, we need the numbers. Yep. That was my point. I tried to make it. I don't know if that was clear, but
yeah, I thought so. It's a populist movement, so I mean, there are going to be some people that are not, right up our progressive alley, that are in that movement. But I still think it's important. And then the other thing was later, all the fast food memes and talking about Whole Foods and the food co-op and stuff. Because I mean, I eat that way, but I think that people, we have half the country in poverty. Not everybody can afford. I mean, you can eat really healthy cheaply if you do it right, but convenience food people are just, this is America. You grow up on junk, especially if you're poor. So it was that too, was pushing my buttons. Sorry. So.
Oh no, but I was really curious. What is it? And then I just like to connect and network and get channels together and people together.
Yes, absolutely. There aren't a lot of people. I noticed we're the same age too, and this is another thing. There aren't a lot of women our age in the movement. I don't feel like. So
I feel alone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my kids are older. I've got one in college and one that's 14. So
mine are all over 20, and we have 6 between me and my husband. So.
Wow, I only got 2.
Yeah.
But I guess a lot of women our age, not to be sexist, but they're busy with the kids. Let's face it, the women do more with the kids. But anyway, anyway, it's nice to meet you in kind of in person. So okay, we'll get. I don't know how much IT stuff you know. I try, but
I am not an IT person at all. I've been watching though about the Julian Assange thing. And I understand what they're saying, and I trust the experts. Like, there was the guy from the CIA that developed the program that would be less invasive but could still detect terrorism. Oh my God, is everyone listening?
Yeah. All right. Is it Benny? Are you talk? We've been talking about Benny a lot. Wait a minute. I don't know specifically that one you're talking about.
Benny, yeah.
Okay. You do mean Benny.
Yeah.
Okay.
The ex-CIA guy?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's why we give so much, weight to, and we believe this is because there are so many whistleblowers that support this theory. So that's why I just kind of challenged some of the other side, the dissenters, say, please, tell me why they're wrong, because if they're wrong, they're wrong. I'm going to hear it. Ultimately, I have my own bias, but I just want the facts. So, but we may not be able to get them, apparently.
Let's take it all the way back to the very beginning. The fish, right? So the fish is some type of something was delivered to Podesta. He clicked on it. He provided his password, right?
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
So if it's a leak, why do you need a fish, right? If it's an insider that leaked it, why would he need to fish out Podesta? He'd just go, if he's got access already enough to move files like that, he wouldn't need to fish out Podesta. He'd just move the files.
Well, weren't those two separate things, though?
It could. That's my theory. I think they are two separate things.
Why is there an echo? Am I doing something wrong? I need to shut
do you have YouTube?
off?
Do you have YouTube on while you're just mute?
Let me check. Hold on.
Just mute YouTube if you have it up on your
I'll
screen.
close it.
There you go.
Okay, much better. Okay, see, I told you I'm not techie. I don't know. I'm learning.
I'm not either. I don't even know how. Like, if something messes up here, I'm in trouble. Like, I've got it all set, and I have to just click a few things, and it goes. But
I have my son set everything up, and then I go from there. He's good.
Do we know that the files came from that server and not from a Carbonite or, they really weren't into security.
No, we know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Mitchell. Okay, I never got to say hi to you in person. Hello. I've said hi on chat, but sorry. Go ahead.
But my wondering is if they had the actual files backed up out in the open somewhere else, and they were taken from that point.
Yeah. Yeah, again, another possibility.
There's lots of possibilities, and the Russian narrative is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm so done with it.
Well, also, if it was hacked or leaked, it doesn't mean it was by Russia.
Right.
Yeah, either way.
But that doesn't mean Russia was not also campaigning, as they always do, to instill discord. Just like the Grizzly Steep report clearly demonstrated that there was activity from typically Russian actors that was taking place. Although they weren't targeting the DNC, they were targeting the voter registration systems and maintaining it there.
Okay, but what about Saudi Arabia and Israel? Their country, just as influential on our elections as Russia.
And China. No one's mentioned China. China's always trying to push some kind of influence.
Well,
we're influential on other elections. Why is this even an issue?
Anybody remember Woolsey on Laura? I think it was Laura Ingram's show. Is it John Woolsey? I don't know if he's CIA or NSA, whatever he is. It was that went viral because she asked him, "Well, don't we interfere in other countries?"
Oh yeah, I see. Right.
And he makes this weird, this weird sound, and he's like, "Well, yeah, but we're doing it for good reasons." Mm-hmm. But
when America does that, it's fine.
Right,
it's fine.
So
we're doing it for the right reasons.
I want to go back to what you said about John about Russia always sowing discord and all this stuff. So I think if you look too at why do some people say I don't buy this Russiagate stuff at all, and other people find it very believable, and I would say that's more the Democratic people, that any blue will do people. But I've seen some stuff recently. I mentioned it before. I'm not going to get into names again. But in the election integrity community, people posting, and a lot of people are doing it. A lot of people really believe that there's just no way that Trump could have won unless they were brainwashed by these ads. And to me, that is just a preposterous, like, what? Have you ever driven through, like, middle America? And I think that's part of the problem. I mean, a lot of people in the blue coastal cities, they are flyover states. I don't like to fly, so I used to drive all the time to Detroit and back, and you have to go through West Virginia, rural Ohio, and I have also driven a lot through most of rural Pennsylvania, and I'm in North Carolina. If you're not in one of the blue pockets, there's no other way to describe the countryside other than wallpapered with Trump signs. Mm-hmm. So to me, I wasn't shocked at all. I mean, I kind of figured Trump would win. And so I think there's this, we're all in our...
once Bernie lost, Trump won. It was...
Even before that, it was a little... Yeah, but I think Bernie would have beat him. But I guess my point is, we all have our own bubbles that we live in or our own viewpoints. And I think a lot of people that are in that any blue will do camp, wherever they're in New York City, wherever that they are, their world, if they were watching mainstream cable news, they were being told that Hillary was winning. And if they didn't, outside of their community, they didn't see rural Pennsylvania that I drove through. So to them, they're like, oh my God, how in the hell did Trump win? It has to be, people are just, with these ads that half of them weren't seen until after the election, right?
Right.
So it's
it wasn't even that many. And even if you did see those ads, would that have changed your mind? Really?
I don't think so.
I don't think that would have changed my mind at all. I'm sorry. I seen the ads that they were talking about. None of them would have changed my mind. They would have just propped up the people who already made up their mind. Right. Because they were actually ads on both sides against both parties.
Right.
They were.
Right.
And that's what people don't focus on is they weren't one-sided or the other.
No, they weren't.
Mm-mm.
They were both sides.
Right.
So.
And most of them didn't run until after the election.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was $4,000 across all of Google platforms. $4,000.
And I think the other thing, I've got a clip I want to show, and I haven't been, what is that called? The strikes from YouTube when I do this. So that hasn't happened to me yet, so I'll show it in a second. But yeah, but it's bound to happen. But so I think the other thing, hate to be ageist here, but the other thing too, I always mention this, is that I think for people, I'm 47, people my age and younger, the millennials, they're like, Russia, what? I mean, we didn't, the Cold War, like, I remember a Sting song, The Russians, when I was about 14. And, like, I mean, I don't know, I kind of remember a little bit, but I didn't grow up having to have those drills where you go dive under your desk.
I did.
So,
I did them in my school.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Not for that, for earthquakes and stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, what I'm saying is, I think for some people that are
Cold War stuff, yeah,
my
parents
that are
were the Cold War people, yeah.
People that are in their, I guess, mid late 50s and older, that programming and that memory, all that stuff is there already. Am I wrong, John? Please.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends what community you're raised in, right? If you're working in the military industrial complex, you would have been inundated your entire career with, are you associated with the Soviet Union and such like that? I mean, all the way up through when Reagan and tear down the wall and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it depends. If you're not in that environment, it wouldn't be evident to you. But no, I mean, the whole non-association with Russia and such like that, it's my entire career. That's always been, and to this day,
right.
You just can't have contacts like that.
Yeah, but since like the late I mean, I do remember that about Reagan, and of course, but that was the late 80s. I mean, it's like to a lot of us, it just came out of nowhere. Like, what? And what we were watching, I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but as Bernie supporters, we saw this, great effort with the media collusion and everything else that was going on that to push Bernie down. And so to have to turn around and have, it was like they never took responsibility for how it was vote shaming, like you need to support Hillary. So for them to turn around and just instantly, it just fit the whole, everything that was already happening. It was like, we're not responsible. The voters owe us. And so, it's not our fault. It's Russia, So that's how I think it felt to a lot of us.
It was Russia and Jill Stein voters.
And Susan Sarandon.
And Susan Sarandon and Jimmy Dore, and go down the freaking list. Anyone who didn't follow their narrative, it's their fault.
Yep.
Right. So I want to show this clip. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but let's see if I get a YouTube strike. Okay, just a sec. We'll try it. All right. Here we go. See if anybody remembers this.
Oh, I do. I know what this is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that you recognize that Al-Qaeda is a threat. Because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda. You said Russia. In the 1980s,
want their foreign policy back.
Poland asked for their foreign policy back because the Cold War's been over for 20 years.
The Cold War's been over
when it comes
20 years.
Our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s.
Not an Obama fan, but that was a good
social
line.
Policies of the 1950s and economic policies of the 1920s. You say that you're not interested in
definitely not
what happened in Iraq. But just a few weeks ago, you said you think we should have more troops in Iraq right now. And
okay, so anyway, I think that's it. But I just, that was that was such a suave move on Obama's part to this.
Oh, that was great.
Well,
that was good.
Yeah, but
that was a good move, and they need to start bringing that back instead of jumping on the Russia train.
Yes.
But that's part of why. I mean, yeah, I think of people that were born in the 90s. It's like they have no idea. Like, so this is what they hear, and they remember that, and it was just sounded ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think
it sounds ridiculous to me.
Do what?
Are they any less the superpower they were in the 80s?
No, I don't think so. I think that Russia's, yeah, I do, but it's just the fact that to all of a sudden blame all this on Russia, and that our elections are so, fragile that they could come in and just by putting ads on Facebook. And,
why not focus on election integrity?
Yeah.
Because they were focused on
yes.
Russia hacking the election. Why not focus on election integrity? If they were really worried about that, why not fight with all their might to get rid of the Electoral College?
And that is what proves to me that this is a red herring.
Right.
Because you don't hear them talking about election integrity. If that was really what is vital and is what is driving this whole thing, then why aren't they talking about election integrity? They don't care about it because they know this is just a red herring.
They do.
Yeah, they do. They know it's a red herring.
They totally know. No doubt in my mind. If they really thought it was Russia, they would get all over election security, election. Yeah.
Okay.
They would get all over the Electoral College and get the power away from all the rural areas. And people from the rural areas, they're really misled because they think they'll have a better life. I'm from a rural area, so I can speak to this. Just so you know, I'm from really kind of rural Utah, Tooele County. It's a tiny town, Grantsville, and the people here really think the Republicans have their best interest in mind, and they think they're going to protect the land, they're going to protect the water, and they don't. They don't. So we just got to get the message across to everybody who, right, left, in center. I don't freaking care where your political values lie. It's like people are people, and we all have the same basic needs. we need to somehow get together on that.
Well,
So-
that's everything that's in the book Listen Liberal that I mention almost every live stream, because it sums it all up. It's why working class people left the Democratic Party, and why even though, and Thomas Frank talks about this, the Republicans don't represent their interests, but they've been kind of duped into thinking that, and clearly, as Thomas Frank explains in the book, it's like, the Democrats became the party of the liberal elite, of a certain class of, white-collar professionals. And there's this great, disdain for, working class people. So, anyway. But
there is.
About Russia.
And Romney that you had on there was huge. As far, his famous quote, what was it? The bottom 47%.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yep.
Right.
I don't remember the exact wording, but oh my God. And he's my senator.
I know.
He's my senator. He replaced Hatch. That's not much of an improvement. It is an improvement because Hatch had a lot of power. Romney is hated by both sides, so hopefully he'll have less power. I hope.
Well, back to the whole Russian interference in any way, if I guess the other possibility is that if that has been going on all along, that the American public, that we just haven't been really informed on that. Is that a possibility, John?
Yeah.
Do you, playing devil's advocate here, but
sorry, John, go ahead.
It seemed to all boil up in 2016, and it all came to a head. I would imagine that it had been going on long before that, to some degree. But I don't know. It just all came to a head in 2016. We became aware, and I totally agree with you that election integrity, if we could fix the elections and secure them, then we're, halfway home to proper representation. And the security of knowing that my vote is counted as I cast it, and that across. Because I do want to know, don't necessarily agree with you about the Electoral College, but I would want to know a popular representation of the election. I do think the Electoral College should be locked in step with the popular representation to some degree, but it would be very interesting to know with certainty how everyone voted.
Don't you think it would be a better system if each state was proportional? Like, instead of one state getting all their delegates to one person, that they got delegates according to who voted for them, like a percentage, instead of getting all the electoral votes. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Instead of...
Yeah, I would like to... I don't believe... we're going to go off... I'm against a two-party system. I think it's...
I am too, yeah.
Yes, very much so.
It's pretty much destroying our representation properly. It's polarizing. I think, if anything, when we were talking with the previous guest, John, we talked about that central party. We need something in the middle to solidify and to... So, no, not being able to vote in the primary of the opposing party and such like that, that's just all, for me, that's counterintuitive. And see all that go away. I'd like to see political clubs. You can have a Democratic club and a Republican club. Great. Everyone gets together and talk about how they vote and what issues are important to them. That's great. But to tie it into the election, I've got a problem there. But
I agree. Yeah.
The Electoral College system, and we talked about this previously in a previous discussion. It goes back to the Constitution and some of what the Founding Fathers are trying to do. But at the same time, I would like to see if the Electoral College is in place and being used, I'd like to see the popular vote have a percentage of electoral representation. That way, a huge popular swing could also influence greatly the electoral count. So perhaps a compromise of some sort between the two, between the electoral system and a pure popular system might work and show advantages. Because I understand what you're saying. We do want it to be proportional to the population and have popular representation into the democracy. And it might be time in our country's development to be looking towards those things. I wouldn't want to take away representation from the middle states, but at the same time, I don't think we should lessen the representation of the populated states in the two coasts. So some kind of compromise would work.
No, I agree. But as a person from someone in the middle states that's a flat out red state, I'm not represented. So every vote goes towards the Republican Party, no matter how I vote.
Right.
You know what I mean? For national elections, I have no say in what happens here. So I think it's better to have a proportional. At least people would maybe get out and vote more, thinking they may have a chance of having some representation, instead of just knowing that it's all just going to go to the Republicans no matter what you do. I mean, we have Salt Lake County. That's the only place that really is or Democratic. Other than that, it's all Republican. Every single place is Republican. So my vote does not count, and I want it to count.
Yeah, you strike a very valid chord, and that is part of the problem in the previous discussions we were having, is representation, that people like yourself that feel that their vote is not counted because it's swaying, the whole state is swaying one way or the other, that by reducing the amount of people that vote, the election becomes easier to swing in a direction, right? We want full participation. If we had full participation, and your vote should be represented and should be up side by side with how the state went, right? If 50% of the state is voting Democratic, and yet the state's electoral is going 100% Republican, well, there's some kind of disconnect between.
Well, even if it's 75-25, 25% of the vote should go towards the Democrat, you know, and I just don't think we're represented at all in the middle states. I mean, people like me. Of course, the Republicans who want to vote against their own interests are, of course, being represented and being screwed over. But I don't want to vote that way, and it doesn't matter. Except for local elections and referendums, sort of.
Well, we have a huge problem right now, which, you know, I've talked about recently. You know, it's been really hard for me to kind of not be incredibly discouraged after what I was in Broward County.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I spoke to Brenda Snipes myself twice.
Did you?
I did. I live streamed one of the questions I asked her, but you know, until we have paper ballots, how are we going to fix any of this? And then how do we get there?
But still, with paper ballots, I got to give you my own story here with paper ballots, because we just went to a mail-in ballot election. It's a brand new thing. Okay, this is my personal experience. People in my circle, the Republicans got 2 ballots. Democrats got 1 ballot. Or no, not Democrats. Democrats got 0 ballots in my family. And the independents got 1 ballot. Like, how do you, like, reconcile that? And I called the county and asked them what's going on here, because it was on the news after I, you know, seen that happen. I was paying attention, and the news said that some people got 2 ballots. It was just people who moved recently ended up with 2 ballots. And then I called the county, and they changed their story entirely and said it was just a batch number at the printer that was the mistake, and they don't know how that happened. But it changed from the news story to what they told me at the county. Like, the story changed. So I don't trust even with paper ballots. I asked them, can I come verify? They're like, no, only people who are appointed or elected can do that. Like, you couldn't come verify. You could stand off in a distance, but how do you know what they're doing? I think you can't see that far away.
The problem is, it's been 30 years of all this stuff happening and we weren't paying attention, or not enough people were paying attention. And so there are so many layers of corruption, or at least incompetence, that allows for corruption to happen, or just inaccurate results. I'm going to see.
But it was Mitt Romney in my area. This is the area it happened in, that we had the duplicate ballots sent to Republicans, and back in when he was running for president, he was associated with Diebold election machines that were very hackable. I don't know if any of you remember that during that election.
I know about it. I had kind of a crash course in all that stuff, and honestly, it's kind of like trying to understand the DNC leak versus hack stuff. When you try to get into, as a non-IT person, trying to understand all of these machines, I mean, it's almost just leaves you feeling like is it purposefully done that way so that things can be hidden? Because right now there are all these battles in court to save the ballot images. Well, they're supposed to be doing that anyway, and they're not. So we're fighting them on that, and then what? They're going to do something different with a different machine. So it seems to me like what we need to do is get back to I know there are problems with paper ballots, but
I know. Yeah, but that's better than the electronic, where they can put like a percentage, like you vote for this guy and a percent goes to the other
fraction
guy.
Magic. Yes, it's called fraction magic.
Yeah.
Benny Smith.
I'm not technical. I don't know how to explain it, but I understand the concept.
I don't either. And I was there for one of the conferences. But yes, this great guy named Benny Smith figured that out, and he presented there at this event.
Yeah.
But
there's a big thing in Iowa right now where the Republican Party was the one that got to pick which votes are counted, and they did open ballots from. On the absentee ballots, they did open ones from Democrats. So that is a big issue with me. If it's mail-in at all, if somebody has the control of deciding, well, this one was received and the envelope was down, so we're not opening that one. We're only opening this.
Or the signature doesn't match. And Mia Love, when she was going against Ben McAdams. Ben McAdams eventually won, but it was super close, and she stopped the counting of the ballots and sued to try to get ballots thrown out because the signature's not matching, and she wanted her team in there deciding which ballots to count and which not to count. And she's buddy with Mitt Romney, and thank God she's out of there, but now we got Mitt Romney. So
well, in this case, and we got to remember, this is like a dress rehearsal for the Iowa caucus, which is how we whittle down who's going to be the candidate for president. So in this county, the north side of this county, there was the Republican won by 11 votes.
11?
11. He's also the one who got to pick which ballots were opened. So,
really?
29 ballots were not open. They're not saying that the signature didn't match. They're saying that we didn't like these envelopes, so we didn't open them. And
well, they wanted to stop the counting before even They wanted to stop the counting before even the military ballots came in, because all the overseas military, they didn't have their ballots in yet, and they were trying to stop it.
So I think one of the we're getting way off from the DNC leaking, but that's okay. That's okay. That's what we tend to do. I think one of the best ways to keep the focus on this. So Brian and I interviewed candidates with a contract and contract for American Renewal, and we started talking about election integrity a lot, but didn't really kind of know where to go with it. I think we would just talk about what happened in 2016 in Broward County with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Tim Canova's race, and I I guess it was in the fall, I started recommending the candidates request the public records request, or put in a public records request. Well, that takes months to get back, and so obviously those more needs to be done. And I'm not really sure what needs to happen exactly, but if it needs to become part of each candidate's campaign, that they put in all this work, months and months, a year of work, and all these people working on the campaign, and all this money into it, and then the whole voting thing is just like, oh, most of them, and I'm not
election reform should definitely be on everybody's agenda,
right?
Because
but it's
even
like,
if you get the referendums, the national referendums, how do you trust the results if we don't have verifiable elections?
Right, and see, most candidates, and I'm not giving them a hard time, it's just most of us don't know. I mean, most of the candidates didn't know what machines they had, and so there's just this sort of, we just go, oh, okay, well, we'll see what happens, and there's no checks and balances. So maybe what could happen is, if within each candidate's campaign, have some reporters, maybe have some volunteers that report on what's going on in their district with the voting machines. What's the history of? I mean, we had some videos sent to us. Do you remember that in 2016 there was the push button machines that wouldn't let people push the correct? So that happened again.
Push one and it would pop up the other candidate. Yeah.
So
and
that's
what happened in the presidential election with Mitt Romney and the Diebold machines. Like you'd push the other candidate. Yeah.
Right. Well, we got a video. Oh,
Sorry,
really?
But it did happen to me.
Well, we got a video from a candidate in Louisiana that they had that machine. He was on talking with us, but the person that was trying to vote for him sent a video of it happening, and it wouldn't let him vote for him. So he reported it to the poll workers, and they were like, "Well, you're trying to vote in the wrong district or something." I mean, they didn't even try. They didn't fix the problem, and so he ended up losing that vote.
Oh, that's terrible.
So what's the answer other than to start getting the candidates themselves really involved and fighting for that? And it's really been kind of Tim Canova against the whole all of it.
Tim Canova against the world. He's really the only one I've heard really stand up for that.
And that's why it had so much support across the country from progressives, I think, because we feel like he did what Bernie didn't do, which was stand up and say,
which was painful for anyone who supported Bernie Sanders. It was so painful that he did not stand up.
Yeah.
Because we supported him. That was us. It's like we were voting for us. And then he just doesn't do anything, even though he knew it happened.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going on in his life with what pressure he has or whatever. But still, he can go out there and speak against all kinds of other things. Why can't he speak out against the election fraud that happened against him and against the people that were supporting him?
Well, let's see, John, do you want to, I just want to make sure, I think this is going to be an ongoing thing, because I would like I'm going to keep digging, and I'm hoping maybe we can get more people, other IT experts that might want to weigh in on this. But is there I don't want to miss anything that your conclusion, looking at everything, and you've looked over the forensicator, the multiple pages of his work, is that right?
Yeah. I just don't think we can have an accurate assessment at this point in time. We're too far removed from the original situation and the original machine. Too much could have changed. There's too much at stake, so I want to get rid of all that. Coming back to election integrity and such, I definitely do want to present again to your friends and people the methodology. The primary mistake that we're making is we're displacing our trust. We're trusting a corporation, a voting machine vendor. We're trusting that when we hand off our vote, whether it's pressing a button or clicking or hanging chat or whatever. We're displacing our trust. We're putting our trust into somebody else to somewhere downstream tell us what we intended. And what we got to do, and what my methodology is really pushing, is that the voter themselves needs to verify that the apparatus and the infrastructure, that machine, that voting station, is interpreting their ballot correctly. And then every time you run that ballot through the machine, it interprets it the same way. And there's a trail. And not 1% audit. This is absolutely ridiculous. Or we're only going to audit these over here. We need 100% audit. We need to be able to audit with degrees of granularity, whether it's down to the specific voting machine in that polling place, in that precinct, or up to the national level completely. And like I've been stressing is, with all the infrastructure in place, we should be able to audit the entire election within the same time period as it took to cast the election, the polling period. And we should be able to do this over and over again with not some degree of error in the results, but the exact same results. And we need the infrastructure, we need the cross-checking in place where if there is an anomaly, we can get to it. Because if there's one anomaly, if there's one, see, this is what I don't get is people report 2 ballots, like you mentioned, 2 ballots, right? And then they just like brush it off like, oh yeah, we made a mistake, or the Broward County thing, or disposing of electronic images and such like that. Oh, well, we made a mistake. And then it's just like, well, wait a minute. What if I was in surgery and I said, hey, and the doctor said, well, you know, I made a mistake. I kind of attached things the wrong way, but you'll get over it. No, I'm not going to get over it. This is ridiculous. We need to be able to run an election, and we need absolute integrity, 100%. We need so many, and I want to present.
Well, John has a
election, or the exit polls that they got rid of in the middle of Bernie Sanders' campaign. I mean, that's how we determine if a foreign country's election's a fraud.
Right.
If they're not within 2%.
Yep.
And ours was way off, and then they're like, oh, guess we won't have exit polls anymore.
Right. Yeah. Well, who reported on that? I remember it was Lee Camp. Right? Yeah. But Lee Camp's on RT America, so we have to, say that's Russian propaganda.
And it was also the same progressive Debbie, what's her name? But and she went kind of off the rocker a little too far for me, but but she was all over the election.
Yeah, she did a great job with that.
I just wish she didn't go off the rocker on other things. She just should have stayed with the election fraud. I just wish she would have stayed with that. But,
I posted, so you probably don't know, John has actually designed a paper ballot system.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he has, you want to go, well, maybe not go over the whole thing, but just your idea of how we could sort of crowdfund this, and you've talked to some companies about making.
I want to make a couple demo machines so I could demonstrate this. It's very simple because the voter themselves validates the interpretation of their own ballot. And then a ballot image, and I've had suggestions. This isn't just my idea. There's many people that have helped me develop this on behalf of many progressives. But there's images involved. There's images in 2 places. There's compartmentalization to the polling place. The ballots never leave the polling place. This whole transportation of ballots is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, why don't we just lay them out on the sidewalk?
Right. Well, they kind of were.
There's no reason.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. They were in Broward County.
No reason.
It's on video.
Yeah, I've seen those.
No, that's part of the methodology is it never leaves the polling place until it's counted. The only thing that leaves the polling place are copies of the images, and that goes up to the precinct. And then the precinct does the exact same totals and compares it with the polling place. If there's any anomaly between the two, then we track it down. Why is there a difference? And so we also want to run in real time, right? You can't hack real time, right? As long as we're gathering statistics and doing things in real time and protecting this data, then we've eliminated so many vectors. But also, for the compartmentalization, the voter verifying their own ballot, a paper ballot that isn't handled, it's in a locked ballot box. You could run this paper ballot through the voting station as many times as you want, and it's going to interpret it the exact same way. The first interpretation, when the voter puts it through the voting station and says, yes, the voting station has interpreted this ballot in the way that I intended it, that interpretation, that count, is digitally encoded into the ballot's image. Now, this ballot image is stored not only on the voting station, but on a voting server in the polling place, so that next time they run that ballot through, they're going to generate another image, they're going to generate another encoding, and now they can compare the two. I can compare the coding on the hand count that's after the polling place closes to the exact same image and the exact same interpretation that the voter verified. And I can do that not only on the voting station itself, but on the polling place's voting server. And it goes upstream to the precinct, and then to the county, and then to the state, and the state's determination. And all this is happening in real time, yet the physical ballots themselves are preserved in the original place, the polling place, and they're in locked ballot boxes.
Do you think the officials and the politicians want a secure election? That's my question.
That's what
That's a good question.
The system's not going to fix itself. This is going to have to come from the grassroots up. This is going to have to. That's why I've been saying, I didn't design this for me or a corporation or somebody to do it. I put it in the public domain under the MIT license, right? So it's publicly owned. It's not like the way we are now is we've got these voting machine vendors, and it's like they're selling us cars. Who's got the best car? And this is like absolutely wrong. It should be built to a specification that does exactly what it's supposed to do. Interpret the ballot and have the voter verify that, and then set up a construct of security so that you can't change. If you change any part of it, if I change the image on the voting station, it's going to conflict. There'll be an anomaly between that one and the voting server that's inside the polling place. If in transport up to the precinct, somebody decides to change it, it's not going to match what's in the polling place. It's a hierarchy of protections, and it's all happening in real time. So it's absolute election integrity. It's not owned by a vendor. Now, vendors can come along and they can try to build this machine.
Yeah, and then they do the proprietary thing, so you can't verify it.
It's not even, I can't. In California, we learned that you can't even subpoena the software under a court challenge.
It's proprietary. You can't know. Just like the fracking chemicals, it's proprietary. You can't know what they're pumping into the ground.
We want to go the exact opposite direction. We want open source everything. Open source hardware, open source software. The system itself, the methodology, is self-checking. So I don't need security through obscurity. I have security through layers and layers that all have to check back and forth with each other, so that if any one part falls, I've got three layers. I've got a physical layer, the paper ballot itself. I've got a virtual layer, an image of that ballot, and then I've got a digital layer, a encoding of what the voter approved that the machine interpreted. So that
I love that, but have you actually proposed that to anybody, and can we get the government to actually, what we need to do is push, I'll bring you on my show and we'll get a network of people. That's my thing, is getting a network of the small channels together to push what we need to do in order to make what we want to happen, to get people to represent us and push forth like climate change initiatives, because we have a catastrophe that we're not going to have a freaking world to live in if we don't do something like right now. Sorry, I'm going off on that.
No, he loves that topic too.
Oh, so. Yeah. Do I get
that's my favorite topic. Sorry.
Acidification. It's our most pressing issue right now. The amount of carbon that's in the atmosphere, the increase that's being absorbed back in the oceans, is having a dramatic effect. But it's not so much that it's the rate that it's happening that's being linked with extinction events. That's
and worse than they ever thought it would be. It's going faster and faster.
We won't get out of this century.
Beating the predictions, and that's scary.
Oh, it should be. It's going to affect the entire food chain, and before 2100, we will see irreversible. We're at the point right now where we have to make such a dramatic change otherwise it'll be irreversible. We're just going to live.
Right. And my kids, and I have grandkids now. I just have like through marriage, I have 2 grandkids, and I can't imagine the world they're going to live in. How do people live with themselves?
Right.
You
need to just get off carbon emissions. We have to so dramatically decrease those, and it's good. It's a global effort. It's not going to be one country. It's going to take everybody, and
and we can't wait for an election. That's the thing. We can't wait for an election. We don't have enough time to waste getting someone in there elected to do what we need to do. We need to pressure the people that are in there now to do what we need to do. Yeah. I'm sorry, but we don't have time. People like you, rah, who, this person, that person, rah, whatever. We don't have that much time. We need to start acting right now.
You're absolutely correct. 100%.
So, this is kind of what we do. We bounce around a little bit. But while you guys were talking, I pulled up something. So if we had a system like what John has proposed and that other people helped you design, we wouldn't have, so let me see, I'm going to share this again and explain this as best I can. All right. Here we go. Oops, no, we don't want that. Okay. I don't know if this is going to be easy for people online to see. Probably not, but hopefully you guys can see it. Okay. There is this crazy rule in 2 counties in Florida, one of them being Broward. Okay, listen to this. The supervisor shall aggregate and record for each precinct the total number of ballots cast by all voters voting in the election, with subtotals for each candidate and ballot type. If a precinct has a subtotal of 1, this is very specific, 1 to 9 votes, the supervisor shall report 0 votes in all subtotals, except in the total votes group for that precinct. So, if anybody remembers, and Lulu Freystadt did a fantastic article in like no time. It was on Truth Out. I think I posted that on the Candidates with the Contract Facebook page. But anyway, talking about the missing votes in Florida's 23rd, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Tim Canova's race. So these votes, I think it's almost 100,000. Are just, they're not attributed to anywhere. We can't see where did they even come from. Well, because there are all these blanks, see? But the reason is because they created a way for it to not have to be shown by this crazy rule that there was one provisional ballot, then they don't have to report any number of any of them from any category.
That's insane.
It is. It's completely insane. And so these are the kinds of things, yeah, I know, it's shocking. Because when the story first came out, Lulu put that together so quickly. It was fantastic, but nobody really knew about that rule until, I don't know when it was later. But so it's their way to say, well, we're doing it, we don't have to show how many votes were in each precinct and what type of ballot it was, because we created this way to just hide it all. So
that's insane.
Yeah,
we should be wide open, not closed.
Right.
Everything
nuts.
It is.
Because we want to detect the anomalies. We want to find. We want it so visible that we can see where things go astray. And compartmentalization. You contain the anomaly so that it doesn't affect the whole. It stays in that compartment, and then you just deal with that small compartment and figure out what went wrong and drill down and get it wrong.
And how can you find these anomalies when there's a law like that they don't even have to report?
Right.
Well, and who came up with that?
Don't look behind the curtain.
Right.
Insane.
We need to push really hard because Venezuela has a way better election system than we do. And that's the one that everybody makes fun of, Venezuela. But they have one of the best election systems. But we can't even match Venezuela in the wealthiest country on the face of the planet.
Yep.
I mean,
do you know?
Word
you
shoes
know?
are right for some reason. I mean, it's not like rocket science here, right? This is all doable. If you can do bank transactions online with complete security, I mean, this is so ridiculous that our election infrastructure is so antiquated that that we're not sure of our elections. We should be absolutely sure. We should be so sure.
So that would be nice. I would like to believe my vote counted. That would be great.
It's going to count. That's why we just need to make the change. What we need to do is present a better mousetrap, right? The better mousetrap is going to sell itself. We don't need to sell.
And we got to push it, but we all have to be on the same message so we know what to push.
Yeah.
And really, nothing matters unless your vote counts.
Right.
Absolutely. You're saying exactly. That's why I created the high-level presentation of the methodology. If you go to election.services, it'll link you to the presentation.
I put it in the.
Yeah. And then just take a look at it. It's open for discussion. It changes all the time because if people see a flaw in it or something.
Election.services?
Yeah. There's a PDF file there. It's a very high-level view, but the reason why I developed that was so we all get on the same page, like you said. If we can all get on the same page and we can build to the same direction, we can fix this thing. Divide and conquer. That's what we're doing right now. We've got all these problems, all these vendors, all these. It induces apathy, right? We're so with all these ways that that our election is not being secured, that we become apathetic. And we say, "Oh, I might as well just not vote."
Right.
That way.
I'm going to vote. I will always say that, and I'll always encourage people to keep voting. But in the meantime, we need to push for a more.
Well, I think the way could be through the candidates, because I think that, one of the best things about doing these interviews over all of last year, all of these candidates were so inspiring. I mean, really, they just wanted to represent the people and not special interests. But the other fascinating thing, it really didn't matter whether they were running as Democrat, Independent, Green, and 2 libertarians we talked to, maybe one. Yeah. There are some obvious differences there, but there are still some things that we have, can see eye to eye on. Cutting military spending and public banking.
Progressives have a lot in common with libertarians.
Yeah, somewhere we can.
Are anti-war, and
so there's some, and
there's some common ground there.
So going through the candidates, maybe getting them on board with this system might be the way to go.
States. That's where the real win is, because they're the ones that are running their own state elections. So if you can sway the Secretary of State,
that's what I've been. Yeah, that's what I want to start focusing on.
But the candidates, you're correct, because they can bring awareness.
Well, right, but have them start putting the pressure on secretaries of state.
Exactly.
It's
got to come from the ground up, because, like I said, the system's not going to fix itself. It's not. There's no motivation for it to do that. So it's just got to be a public awareness, and then a direction to move forward together. That's all we're trying to do.
Yep.
Right.
Can we enlist an agency such as the NSA or the NRO to observe the communications traffic of the polling places as a third-party partial observer?
Probably the Department of Homeland Security, the NRO.
I don't know if that's such a good idea.
Shall I get into that? I'm going to share this every time on live stream.
I'm sure that's such a good idea.
We want to make sure there's checks, though, right? We're not just going to displace our trust to someone else. We want the data. We want to see how it's, and we want to verify that it was done, right? It's not going to be, hey, you guys over there, just make sure everything goes right. I don't want to. That's what got us in this mess in the first place. Is we said, hey, ES&S, I'm going to press your button and you count like such a Brady, right? Remember the Brady Bunch? We're all Bradys. We just trust that everything's going to be good in the end, right? But that's not how it is. I'm not just going to give my ballot to some company to tally for me and tell me how I voted. That's just ridiculous.
I agree. My problem is, do we really want an arm of the military-industrial complex monitoring our elections?
Monitoring, not controlling.
We're collecting data, but the public
understand the distinction.
Yeah.
Well, so
should it be citizens that are monitoring it and
Yes.
verifying it?
I
mean, it could be something like jury duty, where you get randomly chosen to go
I
monitor
agree with
it.
Yes.
Yeah, in the methodology, there's public oversight of the hand count. That way, everybody can see what's going on. Everyone can see the election official right there with their own monitor. There's 3 monitors overhead that everyone that wants to participate can see. Like I said, it
How
also
about like cop cams, like they put on the cops, you know, the pic, so you can see what they're doing.
But the beauty of it is that you can just rerun it, right? After we get the preliminary results that are all electronic, all left images, all done in real time. But that's preliminary. Then we go through a hand count process where we roll the paper ballots back through the voting stations and we do it all over again, like the polling period happened again. Now, if the 2 match, we have some election results. You could take the ballots and do it again. You can do it as many times as you want. You can do it 100 times. You better have the exact same results every 100 times. You could do it for a single voting station. You could do it for a polling place. You could do it for a precinct. Or you could rerun the entire. So if there's any debate down the road where they say, I don't think this was counted accurately, just recount it. It's easy, and it's only going to take the time it took to do the original election. Not like there's a Broward County, how long can it possibly take? See, this centralized, bringing all the ballots together into one spot, that's really poor security. I mean, you're asking for centralized tabulation is centralized manipulation, right? You just make it easier. That's why we got to compartmentalize this thing so that it's impossible to widespread manipulate the election. And then and that's why we're going after election integrity, because as soon as we secure the election, then we know our representation is proper. And then we're going to get the issues that are most important to us represented properly. It's like you said, you want to know that your vote counts. You're being represented, right? And the people that think like you, your issues are carried forward. And that's it all starts at the election. That's why we got to nail down the election and make it foolproof. Absolute election integrity.
So there's a lot of money involved and a lot of people that won't be too happy about. So the HAVA Act, I mean, the way I see it, the more I dug into it, is there's tons of money that the voting machine manufacturers are waiting there with their hands out to get the funding or the state to then buy, the voting machine. So they're not going to go willingly.
That's right. The system won't fix itself. But why is there money involved? Wherever there's money like that involved, there's corruption. I mean, that's why we got to.
Absolutely. We know that.
It's got to be publicly owned, absolutely publicly owned. If there's a vendor that thinks they can make the machine to our specification, the public's specification, cheaper than this other vendor can make it, great, do it. That's capitalism, that's free market enterprise. But I'm not handing off the integrity of the election to somebody else to tell me how I voted. This is where it's wrong.
Right.
I voted. I want to know that my voted was recorded accurately, and I want to know that my vote was preserved, and I want to be able to come along anytime after the election. This calling up for public records, seriously, it should be part of the election that I have access to the election itself. It's a public record.
Right, and there were people reporting back that they were being quoted like $700 they would need to pay to get these the public records. Yeah.
It should be part of the process.
Ridiculous.
It shouldn't be separated, right? I should be able to access, because the way we've serialized the paper ballots, right? The paper ballots aren't sent out ahead of time. They're generated on demand. They're serialized, and then they pick up the serial. There's an addition to it. So as it goes through the voting station, it gets the serial of the paper ballot, and it gets the serial number of the voting station that went through. So now I can tie that ballot as many times as it goes through to the images that were created from it. I can put all those images up online. You can go look at your ballot, make sure you can see then the ballot, you can see the way it was interpreted that's digitally encoded, then you can see it at any layer. You can see it hopefully at your precinct, they would make it available. Hopefully your county would make it available. And definitely the state would make the entire images of the election available for some period of time. They don't have to retain the data forever, but just put it out there. I know my ballot serial number, right? I saw it when I put it through the machine. I'll go look, and I'll make sure that those things are still the same, right? And if I don't believe it's right, I should be able to make a call and say, hey, we want to run my paper ballot through again because I want to see the way that it's interpreted because I don't believe this. Anytime there's an anomaly, there's three parts. So if any one shows an anomaly, I've got two others to verify with. And it's at various levels, right? Not only because it's mirrored inside the first compartment, the polling place, but it's also copied up to the precinct, right? So those two images have to jibe in the digital interpretation that has to be the same on both. So I could go ballot by ballot through the entire election if I had to and verify the whole thing. Or I could go fast and see that, hey, what this polling place reported was accurately, because in the presentation you'll see that the same software is doing the same interpretation, whether it's on the voting station or the voting server inside the polling place or the precinct's voting server that's also interpreting those ballot images. They all have to interpret it the same way. They all have to be in lockstep, and they're all in separate places, and they're compartmentalized. So
how do we get your system in place everywhere by 2020?
Well, we just got to build two of them. Let's just start demonstrating this, right? If I can take 1,000 ballots and roll them through this demo and have them interpreted the exact same way every single time, or 100 or whatever you want, people are going to start understanding that comparing this that I've seen that does exactly what I need it to do to me handing my ballot off to Diebold or ES&S or somebody else to somewhere downstream interpret that for me and magically match what I said without checking with me. See, that's the most important thing, right? The voter themselves has to verify the interpretation of their ballot.
Right.
Everything downstream is just a check and balance. No one will ever tell me how I voted because I will tell them how I voted.
Right.
Well, the problem that we have, and sorry, everyone else that's already heard this, but I should repeat it every time, is the committee that was formed between DHS and ES&S and Dominion Voting Systems. There's a private committee. It's all done behind closed doors. And you can find it.
It's more of the same.
What are we going to do about it? I mean, how do we combat this? That's
my question too. I was just pushing it through, getting a valid election system through to people who don't want a valid election system, who have all the power. We really have to have some push, giant push from everybody in order to get something enacted that we can count on. And the only way we're going to do that is to really network and stay together. And I'm evolving every day on how to make the revolution, whatever you want to call it, work. And I'm going from thing to thing. I'm serious. It's person, Bernie Sanders, issues, and then issues are too divisive and people are too divisive. So referendums, but you can't get the referendums if you don't have a valid election system.
Right. It all started.
So I'm just deducing down to what we really need to do, and the referendums are great, but they won't work if we don't have a valid election system.
Right. We have to triage the real problem, which is the election itself.
Yeah. And other countries have more valid election systems than we do, for sure.
Yep.
I don't know how France's election system, I don't know. Is that how you say France? France.
So that's part of why I, I said what I did about what was being talked about today about the yellow vest, whoever that one member was, because, the yellow vest movement, one of the things that they want to try to do, as far as I understand, in the U.S., is make election integrity part of the platform. Right. So, I don't know.
That has to be part, because if it's not, I mean, look what we're getting right now. There's so much election fraud going on right now.
Serious.
We don't know that the person we want is going to get elected. It's a game. It's already set up. Mm-hmm. They know who they want in office, and they're going to do their best, to get that person in, and it has nothing to do with what the people want. Mm-mm. So, we have to have a valid election system. That has to be number one. And I didn't know that was part. See, I'm still learning. If that's part of the yellow vest, I'm all for it. But the Extinction Rebellion is really similar. Have you looked into that at all? Mm-mm. Anybody?
I've heard of it, but I haven't looked into it.
Look into it. On the Uphill Media, I put a link to the core principles and values of the Extinction Rebellion, and oh my God, it's really similar to the Rick Yellow Vest Rick referendum initiative by the citizens. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, only a little different, but it's more climate based. Like that's a big push where I don't see that in the Yellow Vest Rick movement. And the climate's really important to me, so I kind of cling to anything that's environmentally, that's their focus. Mm-hmm. And that's what that is. So I would really recommend looking into that. I'm just trying to get ideas from anywhere I can get them and try to find the best option, because you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to find what's worked before and do it again. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm grasping for. And I'm not an expert. I'm not a historian. I'm not a climate scientist. I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm definitely not a journalist, but I'll freaking talk about things on YouTube.
Hey,
it's important to me.
Hey, I think all of us that are investing time and energy into all these topics, we're doing a hell of a lot better job than most of our mainstream media. I mean,
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Absolutely. So don't knock it.
So build a network.
Right.
And the people that I've already built networks with, Redneck Economics, Independent Outsider, several others, we're like family now, because we have the same goals.
Stevie does a great job covering. Yeah. She's covered a lot of stuff in West Virginia, and Mitch can talk. Well, you probably already know about the water stuff you guys were working on. You'd have to fill in here because I don't remember the details, but.
Mitch is good. I've watched his interviews with Graham and on other channels too. He's everywhere.
So I'm sure I know that Stevie has touched on this, Redneck Economics, but I've mentioned this before when we get into talking about climate change, and I'll preface this by saying that a lot of times, so I grew up amongst some, we'll call them Romney Republicans, and and also, how do I put it? Some of my family was rather downwardly mobile, and so then I was sort of plunged into areas that was all Trump's base kind of. So I want to say I can kind of, a lot of times when I say something, it's not that I feel this way, it's that I'm trying to sort of relay what I've heard through my ex-brother-in-law, through just having my feet in these different worlds. Okay, so when you get into talking about climate issues, I think we have to understand that when you've got half the country in poverty and people that are trying to live paycheck to paycheck, just trying to put food on the table, and when I brought this up before, we had a Green Party panel, And people got really heated kind of back at me. Well, they should care because it affects their food. But most Americans are so far removed from, like, food grows in the ground. No, it doesn't. I drive to the drive-thru and I order. There's this disconnect. And a lot of people, I think if they've had an experience like, say, pollution, like in Louisiana, these candidates we spoke to, there were these cancer alleys, and people had some kind of pollution right in their backyard that affected someone, you know, in their family that had cancer. But when you're talking to some of these people that are just trying to survive and you're saying the polar ice caps are melting, they may have never even been to the damn beach ever, like in their entire lives.
Yeah,
and this is something that
it's like they can't think past the next block because they're just.
But it's just out of it's necessity, and I don't think it does any good to ridicule those people or say, you know, they're being stupid. They're not. The failure is in our schools. Like, my daughter was well, not for charter schools anymore, but my daughter was previously at a charter school that changed hands and became very bad. But anyway, before that, we actually were part of 2 families that started a school garden. But, so, you know, I'm all for these things, but I think until we start educating people, you know, starting very young, like making those connections between, you know, science and growing our food and how it can be fun and interactive. It's not, you're not sitting at a desk with a worksheet. You're actually like learning hands-on. And what's the edible schoolyard? I'm sure you've heard of that, right?
Not really, but
this lady, Alice,
I'm in a rural area, and my kids, you know, had gardens, and we've grown things with them.
But so many people don't. So many people don't.
I know, so it's really hard for me to connect with that, and I do need education with city people because I've always lived in the country.
But even in the country, though, I mean, I remember going to the grocery store, and this was actually not too far from Research Triangle Park, which is a big, like, IT thing here in Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill, but maybe 20 minutes outside. And I was going through this grocery line with all kinds of produce, and this kid, he was probably, you know, 18 or 19. He didn't know what a radish was. You know, you have to look up and put the codes in. He didn't know what all these...
How do you not know? I ate those out of the ground when I was a kid. They were awesome.
If you grew up eating fruit roll-ups, and some of this is people's poor choices.
Yogurts, fruit roll-ups.
But, okay, some of this is people's poor choices. Some of this is people are working 2 or 3 jobs, and they need convenience
and they don't
food.
have a place to grow a garden.
No, they don't. And so I think sometimes... I just think that, I don't know, there's got to be a way that we have to shift to reach those people without sounding like we're just being preachy and like, well, we've got, you know, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, we've got our basic needs met, and so we can worry about the, you know, the polar ice caps melting, and we understand the connection with our food supply. But when all you've ever eaten is packaged food, I mean, this is a reality for a lot of
the government
people.
Is putting the problem on the consumers.
Yes.
Like the Cash for Clunkers program, right?
Right.
That was a huge thing where turn in your old car and get a payment, huge insurance, huge taxes, but you get a little rebate, you know, when you do that. You get money, you get a down payment for your car, basically, that you're buying. You know what happened to all those cars? They're like gone. And then they had to build new cars. And all those new cars cost like emissions and energy to build all those new cars when we could have used the old cars. And yeah, they're a little bit less gas mileage. But look at Cuba and all the cars they recycle, the old cars. We have a 49 Dodge pickup truck that gets better freaking gas mileage than my 2007 Escape.
Wow. Okay,
that's our newest vehicle, by the way, 2007, because I won't buy a new vehicle.
I'm driving a 2007 also.
Yay.
But
I don't want to buy a new vehicle. I'll get a huge tax break if I buy a new vehicle through my company because I get a car allowance. but I don't want a new vehicle. I like the one I have, and I don't want to pay the insurance and the car payment and all that for a new vehicle.
Well, speaking of what the government pays for, they'll look at subsidizing corn. So
oh god,
corn syrup. So and it's in everything. But I just I don't know. There's got to be a different
ready corn seeds. Like all the big giant farmers are getting subsidies, while the little farmers are not. And we should be down to family farms are more environmentally friendly. Yet they give all the subsidies to the big farms, the corporate farms. Yeah. We should be fighting to get the small family farms back and break up just like the banks. The big farms need to be broken up too. It not only is it not environmentally friendly, it's also not really friendly to the animals, right. And it's just cruel. And
speaking of food on Uphill Media,
get me on that one. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I mean, I'm very passionate about that also, and I'm very fortunate to have a food co-op right near me now. But on Uphill Media today, when they were talking about Trump, what happened? He ordered fast food for everybody or something? Is that
there was a football team or basketball team or something that won a championship, and they went to the White House. And then he instead they were expecting a nice dinner at the White House, and he just ordered in a whole bunch of fast food, and they were lighting candelabras, on the table, but it was all fast food, just a big, huge spread. It was ridiculous, but yeah, that was just humorous. It was really humorous. But
see, so many people have grown up eating that garbage. What was the oh damn it, Super Size Me. Morgan Spurlock,
Supersize Me.
I remember.
I loved his show. Whatever happened? Is he still doing anything? He had that, was it 28 days or some 30 days, or where he would try various experiments. But no, that movie really showed how addictive the food is, and if you grow up and that's tastes like nourishment to you, a radish isn't going to taste good. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Radishes are so good.
I agree.
Not like a radish.
I agree, but if you grew up on McDonald's French fries.
What he went through medically
was
really just shocked the hell out of me. I had no it was that bad on your body. His blood pressure went through the roof. He was having some organ problems. I mean, geez, and how long was he on that diet?
I think he went the whole way, but they told him near day 21.
He was really doing damage to himself.
Did you see the scene where he literally throws up out the window?
Yeah.
After right. So it's terrible, but that food is cheap and quick, and when you've got both parents working, and again,
that's like an emergency for me to eat that food. I have to be so hungry. Once a month, maybe. I am so hungry. I can't wait to get home to cook my own food. I have to go through fast food. And once I get it, I'm so disappointed. Because my own cooking is so much better than that. So much better and more healthy. It's I don't know how people do it every day. I don't.
An issue we had today is we are so ill-prepared in science. In school, more people get their education through rumors. They're getting myths and not understanding the issue.
Yes.
We're talking about 5G, which is farther away from the harmonic resonance with water. That's the problem you have with microwave.
Wait, Mitchell, what do you know about the 5G? Tell me.
Go back and watch one of our previous shows.
We talked about it.
And I arguing about it. Yeah, we weren't exactly arguing, but okay,
give me a Cliff Notes.
Yeah, we really throw mud on here, don't we? We get big fights all the time.
I just want a Cliff Notes version. I only want is the truth.
Both of us agree.
I don't have an agenda. I don't have a side. I just want the truth.
Yeah, both of us agree that 4G is worse than 5G.
Yes, it is.
What?
Yes, 4G is.
Going up in a letter doesn't mean it's getting worse.
No.
It's
really?
it's getting away from the resonance point of water in your body to the microwave. And go look at do you have a microwave?
Yes.
Go look at the door of your microwave. Do you see wires on it?
On the door?
No, in the window of the door. You'll see lines.
I see lines. Yes. Are those wires?
Those are
they're conduits.
I'm not mechanical, okay?
That's what I say. We're not being educated. So, microwave can't go through a hole smaller than that grid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what happens is with the 5G, it has a different size hole. And
yeah,
so
after we got off air, John went all off on the 5G thing. He did. He went. We had the best conversation off air. It was the best. And
like I said, they could have invited me.
You're always invited. Oh my gosh.
But again, like I said, the worst thing for me, issues that don't get brought up because I do understand it, is like I get concerned when I see people go into a subway train with Apple phones, because the Apple phone will start barking to its friends. Do you have a signal? Do I have a signal? And if it's the old one, they're hitting you with a really heavy dose of radiation.
Really? I've never had an Apple phone, and I won't have one. I have Android, but I don't know if that's much better.
The Android might have some of the issue. And there's this squawking up where you start with one level of radiation. If you can't get to a tower, you go up to a higher level squawk.
Oh.
And so if you get occluded, all of them are yelling as loud as they can. I need a signal. I need a signal. And then you have the problem that
you're just completely bombarded. Yep.
Yeah. So those issues aren't talked about.
No, they're not.
And that's where I have an issue with Wi-Fi. And there's a new one out called Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi is totally immune to humans.
Yeah.
Totally what?
Wait, what? Wi-Fi. Immune to humans? Wait.
Well, humans are immune to Wi-Fi.
What are you talking about, Mitchell? Damn it.
But okay,
Wi-Fi is only like in a structure. We'll get off on another show, but that's where I get. And the problem with contrails is so out of control.
I don't know what that is. My son even brings that up, and I'm like, okay,
they're calling them chemtrails.
Is that some kind of conspiracy? Just because they see jet stuff going on?
If I get off track for another second.
No, go ahead. I was just thinking, as you're talking about this, that I know, did you ever start doing your own thing where you were going to do a science episode?
I haven't.
Okay, we need to get organized, because I think you should do that. Because listen, I'm in North Carolina, and I'm in one of the quote unquote best school districts. And my daughter's science education, she used to be very interested in science. She still is, but her science teachers the past couple of years, I mean, we know that all the problems. The teachers aren't paid well enough, and I see her interest waning because there's not enough interactive stuff. They in 8th grade they were doing some water quality testing on a local creek. She was so into that. She was so excited about it. But now, I mean, again, it's just that sit at a desk with a piece of paper and no interactive stuff. So how is it in the rest of the country? If we're in one of the better school districts, I mean, we've got some of the highest SAT scores. What good does that do if you don't really actually understand how to apply any of that? And we could make it fun and they could find it interesting, but I just see year after year, and it's like, it's up to me to, we're at a place now where I can afford to do it, but there were many years for my older daughter, I couldn't afford summer programs and summer camps when she was little to do these things, to find the extra, some kind of STEM program or something to keep her interest going. But that's so wrong that people are having to do that it's not in our schools already.
It should be. And they should have more interactive programs. Like when I was growing up, we went to Dinosaur and looked at fossils and all that, like where they were, and we had great teachers, but I was in a really rich school district, even though we weren't rich. Mm-hmm. I was at Park City, I went to Park City schools.
And that's very unfair. That the education should not be that way. I mean, it shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter where you're raised. You should have the same education, no matter who or what zip code you're in or whatever. You should have the same. And they just recently, a couple of years ago, had a fight between two different areas that were part of the same school district. The Ritchie area wanted to break off because they felt they were giving too much money to the poor area. So they broke off and made their own district. So the poor area got less funding. And it's just sad, you know. It is. The way the people here think, I cannot relate to. I just can't. They're like, me first, I'm first, you know, and we can't help the other people, but they're religious people. We have a huge population of Mormon people that are supposedly family friendly and all that crap. And I go off on that a lot because those people are the worst. I'd rather have an atheist family living next to me than a Mormon family.
We get on that topic. Brian he'll actually speak, he'll take over the panel. Well, I'm in the Bible Belt, so. No, we should do that.
Am I offending somebody? I'm sorry.
No, we should have that conversation. But Mitch, what were you going to say? Please do. I love when you go. We always learn something when you talk about.
Yeah, and again, science. I'm already getting off topic of my own topic. I went to a high school. My cousin is a principal, and I went to his high school, and I brought in like 10 technologies that I thought were going to be the most important in their life. They all of them were just on the edge of their seat. They hadn't had anything like that before.
Wow.
And
what were those?
I wouldn't want to talk about all of them right now, but the ones that got them the most were I had a wire that is a motor. There no windings and whatever. It was just a piece of wire, and the piece of wire was programmed. Where I handed the piece of wire to my cousin or whoever, and I said, bend this to the point where you think I can't straighten it out. Pulled out a Bic lighter, and it was programmed when it hit the temperature that it would remember what it used to look like, and it went back to that shape.
Cool.
Things like I did thermoelectrics, which a lot of people aren't even aware exist yet, where you take low temperature. In the past, steam and everything, all engineers are taught that everything below 570 degrees is waste.
Right.
This is, I concentrate on energy research in low temperature exchanges, 50 degrees to 150 degrees to 200 degrees. And so I gave some of these to the high school, and I said, here, if you put a copper rod into a pile of manure, put this on it, put a heat sink on the other side, you get off 12 volts at 5 amps, which is equivalent to a solar panel, like 2 feet by 4 feet. And but solar panel gives out power during the peak hours of sunlight, and rotting manure gives off heat all night.
I wish I had you at my farm. You know, seeing that thing you did with Graham with the growing the food, you know, that like it's like sprouts basically. They're growing sprouts to feed the animals, right, in the dark, and you can do it in different trays and grow it in a small area. And I didn't understand it. I did get samples of that from a local grower. They do that in Utah.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it? Do you understand what I'm talking about? For one thing?
In fact, you can get a kit yourself and grow your own sprouts.
I want to learn how to do that. I wish you were here.
But anyway,
because we have like 20 horses. Well, we don't have 20. We have 16 horses. So, but we have enough horses, and you can grow it in a small amount of area. There's a farmer out here that grows it and never has to buy hay ever.
Yeah,
ever.
That is probably the farm tech system.
Probably.
Like I said, I wanted to get into it, look into it, and find out these guys are 50 miles away from me, and they're 10 years ahead of me.
That's pretty cool. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take you guys.
No, this is what
Mitchell is. I followed him for a long time, so
no, this is what we want here. We usually
tell me about those, please, because I am out of the loop on those, and my son is all over that.
Okay, let me pull up. Right now, we're at the lowest part of the day for airplane flights. We're probably have 3% of the amount of plane flights that we have during the daytime. So I'm going to show all of the commercial airlines right now. This excludes mostly the military planes because they fly a little bit higher.
Is this flight aware?
Yes. So right now we're seeing all of the flights above, and people have this concept in their head that there's only one plane in the sky.
I know there's more than that. I dated a pilot.
Yeah, and if you look at Los Angeles, somewhere between 25,000 to somewhere around 40,000, you're going to have most of your contrails.
Is this real time?
Yeah, you can see the planes turning.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, if you look at it in the morning, it's just unbelievable. Sometime around 8 o'clock in the morning, this huge number of flights. Well, right now, this huge number of flights that are on their way to Paris right now, Paris and London. So, this is actually a straight line to the planes because the Earth is curved.
Right.
and so much for the flat earthers. We just lost this.
Flat earthers gone. I will miss them. I'm sorry.
This is the main path to Europe. And if you look at Europe right now, how many planes? Now it's just got to be morning there. This is dawn right here. This is the sun just kind of creeping over the edge. And this is still in nighttime, and the planes are just starting to hit London. So they'll all be converging here on Paris. I mean, just an enormous amount. So we and all of these, as the turbulence goes off the back of the plane, it spins the air, and that spinning separates the air, just like you see a vortex behind a tornado. Yes. The contrail behind an aircraft is a little tornado, and yes, it has all the same physics of how the moisture becomes visible. Mm-hmm. And depending on the characteristics of the air, what happens to the water afterwards, they can hang around for 7 to 10 hours. And in other cases, it might be a really warm day and a really dry day. In that case, it's going to dissipate in minutes.
Okay, but is it the government putting chemicals out?
No. In most of these cases,
a lot of people think that.
Yes, but most people look at one vector and they say that's the problem. Even as an aircraft engine does wear, it will put out a little aluminum when it runs.
Right.
And other materials. A little bit of titanium, you get more off. It's always friction. Things are going across each other. Now look at the sheer number of them that are up here in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. So what happens is I call it blue booking. A long time ago, there was a project called Looking Glass and Archangel. I think Archangel is the one I'm most thinking of. They wanted to float a microphone up high in the atmosphere to listen if Russia blew up some test nuclear weapons. And they thought, well, if they knew the volume coming across that amount of air, they could kind of guess what the magnitude of the explosion was. And, back in the late 40s, early 50s, the type of material you needed to make a balloon was top secret because a normal fabric balloon weighed a lot. And you couldn't get a balloon with that weight up high enough into the atmosphere. They needed to get it up between 50 to 100,000 feet. And so they came up with a aluminized polymer to make the
to make the envelope. Now, at that time, anybody looking at something that was shiny and looked like metal was familiar with the wrapping of they used to use aluminum foil to wrap cigarettes and bubble gum. So they're thinking that I crumple it, it's going to have a wrinkle. Mm-hmm. And when this balloon crashed, the immediate cover story for it was that it was a weather balloon. But the people saw this metal, and they saw the dummies that were in one of the experiments, and they thought, okay, we saw aliens. we picked up a piece of metal, and this metal didn't behave like aluminum. It didn't fold wrinkle when you bent it. So then they tried to deny. They tried to stick with their original cover story, that it was a weather balloon. And the news stations were all going, it's aliens, aliens, aliens. And it started this idea of the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then later on, as this got better and better, they switched from just microphones in Archangel to secret aircraft. And they needed cover stories for the aircraft. And they found that the people's conspiracy theories were better than any cover story they could come up with.
Right.
So they needed a way to feed the conspiracy theorists. So they had the FBI create what they called Project Blue Book, where the FBI officially would go out and talk to anybody that thought they saw a UFO. And Blue Book people would give them leading questions. Hey, if they needed to completely discredit anybody that saw a certain type of aircraft, they'd want to try to feed these people into saying that, and then they try to get them to make as ridiculous a statement along with it, so that they report something really stupid to the local news and come off as wacko jobs. Mm-hmm. So when U2 and when the A12 and the SR-71 series were all being tested, the original one, the A12 before the SR-71, the crews were actually ordered, in order to get their badge, I forgot the name of the Habu. Before they could get the Habu badge, they had to fly up to an airliner, to an aircraft that looked like a flying saucer almost. If you look at an SR-71 from the side, tell me you don't think it's a flying saucer.
I don't know what it looks like.
So their order was to approach the airliner from above, come down so only the pilot could see the plane. So you have a whole plane load of people saying, well, I never saw anything. And you have the pilots going, I see UFOs, I see UFOs. And to get their badge, they had to get the pilot to radio in a UFO order. And this was declassified sometime in the 90s. I can't remember when it was declassified. And it just found it so hilarious when I started reading it that it stuck with me all these years. And but then the plane would go off. And because of the speeds the aircraft went, it couldn't use regular fuel. The engines just wouldn't work. So they had a green fire that came out of the back end. And the pressure on the engines when they're full out is so much. You see this string of concentration of combustion, post-combustion after the aircraft, that look like little diamonds. So you have all these little blue-green diamonds, 12 of them, floating behind the aircraft that are really just a phenomenon of the fire. But to them, it looked like these things are being driven by little squares, you shoot off, and it just was perfect. UFOs. And then whenever anything that needed to be distracted from in the news needed a distraction, suddenly there'd be UFO sightings. Is that from last year? So whenever I see some of these stories, I see blue booking, and even a lot of the 9/11, I say.
Well, so
contrails aren't real thing, right? Like
contrails are real, chemtrails are not.
Chemtrails are. Yeah.
Chemtrails are a waste of concerned people's time. Whenever there's something like that going on, there's something else we need to be far more concerned. The case of autism, the little bit of mercury that is the same dosage in a bottle for 10,000 people, 10,000 vaccinations, is equal to 1 CFL light bulb, which almost all of
I'm not worried about mercury in vaccinations. What I worry about in vaccinations glyphosate is already in almost everything we eat, and almost everybody shows certain amounts of glyphosate in them. I'm worried about me because I've worked with glyphosate for many years, being a garden chemical vendor, so a rep for that, and I've handled it. I've had it all over my hands, and
there's a real high incidence amongst the handlers of the people I know. Very high incidence of colon cancer, Crohn's, and there's other vectors there that it's difficult for universities to study some things because of their funding method.
But don't you agree there's glyphosate in vaccines because of the gelatin they grow them in?
Not sure of that because of the methods that they use to purify the vaccines. But I'm not saying it's impossible. Well,
I just worry. Okay, so I had a nephew that started having seizures right after the pertussis vaccination, and then I also had my godson that did the exact same thing, and both of them are ADHD, like severely, and they have seizures.
What is the response?
Right after the pertussis.
What is the response to fried eggs?
Fried eggs?
Yeah.
They don't like eggs. I don't know.
Do they feel sick after you eat fried eggs?
They don't eat eggs. I don't know.
Is that related?
I don't know. Because I'm not that close, but it freaked me out because when that happened, my kids were just born, right after that.
Yeah.
So, and my kids got vaccinated. I'm not a freak,
There's a large amount of people who are sensitive to the avian albumin in the vaccines.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes, and that is real. That is not made up like some of the other things.
But glyphosate is
real, but not
it's in almost everything.
They're finding it in a lot of cereal.
Yeah, but anything that comes from cows that are fed corn or any corn, because of the Roundup Ready seeds that have corn or glyphosate like infused in them to make them immune from glyphosate when they want to kill the weeds, so they can just spray glyphosate on them to kill the weeds and they won't die because of the seeds that are Roundup Ready that they call them.
Some glyphosate does make it through in the corn fed to cattle, but
almost every bit of corn we have is full of glyphosate. I mean, they couldn't even control the seeds, and all those farmers were getting sued because the seeds were ending up in their fields, and they're proprietary. They're
that
patented.
I think is out of control. The majority of the test that's done, the glyphosate or the glyphosate resistant one is called BT, and so BT is not able to even go a second generation. It's only done with what are called sorry, I'm tired.
It's okay. Yeah, we're all tired.
Yeah.
I think everyone's about ready.
I think we are, but hey, I wanted to.
BT corn is oddly ploidal, which means that it cannot reproduce. What they do is every generation of the seeds they sell is odd ploidal. And one of the problems they have in other countries is that these are countries that used to buy seed and then use part of that harvest to make their seeds for the next year.
You cannot do that with unemployed plants. So the combination for the ploidality is not really genetic mutation. It is genetic manipulation, much like breeding cattle. And again, the problem is we're not discussing these things in high school. We're discussing, should we have creationism taught in biology for half the time? And
hey, that's a great segue to I wanted to just, I'm being funny here. Hey, will you stop share for a sec? Or yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. When you were talking about going in the school and showing this stuff, and the kids are like, "Oh wow, cool!" I just thought of this, and I also wanted to share it because I think it's hilarious.
Is Mitchell a teacher? Mitchell, what do you do? Are you a teacher?
I've been an industrial engineer. I've been a human factors engineer and an exotic methods engineer.
Okay, I really don't want to leave this up long because it's disturbing.
Okay,
but
okay.
If you don't know this Twitter page, you must follow it. Humans of Late Capitalism.
Oh my God, that's for the guys, isn't it?
But so no, this is hilarious because the things that they tweet. I mean, here. Oh, this was so funny because Pat the Burner tweeted this out. If Hillary were president, would be at brunch right now.
Pat Cody.
Yeah, him. And anyway, they've got great stuff on here, but that's really disturbing and just kind of shows the state we're in. But anyway, I was going to say, if kids today could find that, you know, all that science stuff is cool, they'd probably know less about Kim Kardashian's ass and more about science.
Oh, that's Kim Kardashian.
Well, that's science, because think of all the science that went into building that. Singing. Because that's not natural.
Anyway,
Actually,
it's at Humans of Late, and it's really funny to. I mean, they just find like let's see. What is this? All employees. So
I think Kim Kardashian, her butt is normal, but she's liposuctioned off all the fat from everywhere else.
Oh,
maybe
that's it. Huh.
I thought I seen a story about how her. I don't know. I don't even freaking care. Sorry.
I know it's the truth though. You know, it's hard, but that's what kids. I mean, you know, they go to school and that's what other kids are talking about, and all you know, every. Well, maybe not everywhere, but I mean, my daughter, she's 14. She got a phone at Christmas. I try, you know, monitor as best I can. I don't, you know, but that's why
I got past it through. I
bought the second copy of this though, because I have one for my older daughter, and I was like, no phone at the table while you're eating. We're going to do the vocabulary workbook because words are power, and we're reading this. So
nice.
I try, but you know,
you're a good mom.
I try, but it's hard to pull them away from that. That's what their friends are doing. They're on Instagram, and she's like, "But I just want to message my friends." And the next thing I know, she's watching I don't know what, an eyeshadow tutorial on YouTube, and I'm like, "No, we're not putting this garbage in."
I am so lucky that when my kids were that age, all they had was the flip phones, the Nokia phones that didn't have any of that. So, thank goodness. Well, my son was really good at texting and driving and getting in accidents.
But, a lot of it, though, a lot of it is just their choice, though, because, you know, my older daughter was just so susceptible to wanting to kind of follow along. Sorry, I don't think she ever watches this, but she's in Scotland. It's morning there. Sorry, Abby, if you hear me talking about you. But with my younger daughter,
I talk about my kids too. It's like, are you gonna hear me?
Like, don't do that. But my younger daughter, I thought it was so cool. Recently, she said, you know, I listen to you talking to candidates as I'm going to sleep, and so she's really been listening, and
nice.
She's got this kind of like budding young activist, I think, in her, and she stands up for things, and so I think maybe more of it's always more of what you do than what you say, obviously, right? that they're going to follow. So try.
I have one of the 6 that are actually going more of an activist route. So super environmentalist, one of them. And I love that. But the others aren't bad. They're not super capitalist or anything. They're not Republican.
Nobody's going into finance. Not to knock that, but
no. Mostly tech.
Okay. Well, you got to make money, and hey, look at what you can offer. You know, your expertise to other people that don't understand things. When you know tech stuff, right?
Oh,
and you can build voting.
Tech children is great. That's how they set up my whole thing with my microphone and everything. Having a tech son and tech daughter. My daughter does videos on Twitch and makes money. That's what she does for a living. And her boyfriend makes video games.
Oh, good.
Okay.
It's insane. And my son is a tech guy for eBay. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah, I've got tech kids. My other daughter's a tech person for some school thing, like it's called Canvas. It's like online school. She's the tech person for that. And I have one veterinary assistant student. So
very cool.
That's the one that I relate to, the environmentalist.
Well, they don't. It's scary though. If we don't turn things around, what choices are kids going to have getting out of school? You know.
Well, everything's going to be replaced by technology anyway. There's not going to be many jobs left. So, what are we going to do? I mean, what's the next generation going to do for income?
Grow our own food and be healthier, maybe. I don't know.
There's a lot of jobs, and we have to end this. We have to end this repeating that there are no jobs.
No, there's lots of jobs right now. Yeah, but
no. There's not a lot of jobs now. There's a lot we need to do.
Yeah,
that should be paid for to be done by the government.
Climate recovery. You mean like the Green New Deal and building a new entire infrastructure?
We need a force equivalent in size to the United States Army. Just for disaster response in the United States.
Yeah, because it's going to get worse and worse, especially if they don't.
But we don't have. If kids don't know basic science, they're not learning that in school. How are we going to have that army of people?
There's this aircraft that Lockheed Martin makes that was discontinued. I think they're making a few now, but the prototype was really fun to watch. But it's capable of lifting like 5 or 6 semis, and completely capable of moving in a fully assembled hospital and just floating in and dropping it. And it has ability to suck itself to the ground so that it can even land in high winds. And
but how's that going to help our kids get jobs?
A fleet of 200 or 300 of those is what we need. Yes, somebody's got to build it, and somebody's got to man it. So they need crews, and it needs a large ground crew. So we need to be able to move large numbers of people to an area to go in. For fighting a forest fire, the small jumbo jets that they use now to go out and get it to take a little bit of water. These things can move massive amounts of water, drop it out, and just blanket an area in without having to constantly go back. Or they can act like an aerial carrier to position water right where the other planes could refuel in air. You can rewater in air.
So why aren't they using this now?
Because we feel that we need to be in an austerity mode. We need to be thinking, okay, we have all kinds of jobs that robots do best at things that repeat or are modeled well, so they know what they're doing. Humans are best at being thrown surprises.
I agree.
Dealing with disasters is dealing with surprises.
So I have to read something that I just got a notice of 6 minutes ago. So I realize we're way off from, and it's fine. That's great, Mitch. I love it when you talk science stuff, and this is how our conversations go. And plus it's Saturday night. This is what we used to always do. It's kind of open forum, and we do things during the week with certain guests and try to stay more on one topic. But anyway,
thank you for letting me in, by the way.
Oh no, absolutely. It's great to meet you in person. But I got a response from Lisa Ling, who is one of the, as I said, the VIPS dissenters. That's kind of rude. But I just, I understand if she doesn't want to talk about it anymore. But I tweeted it at her that we were discussing this because I honestly valued her opinion and wanted to hear what she had to say. She just feels like there's no more to discuss about it. And her response was, please stop. This is getting ridiculous and repulsive. I guess it's repulsive to discuss stuff that hasn't been resolved one way or the other and certainly has not been disproved. But she said, I gave you my opinion. It won't change, and I don't want to discuss it until more and different information is put out. We can disagree without being disagreeable for now. Thank you. So that's fine.
That's rude.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
that's what we're saying is that it's not proven.
No. So I find when again, I don't like to talk about people when they're not here. They're welcome to come on. But her and Jesselyn Raddick, who is a whistleblower attorney, or was, for Snowden and Benny, kind of jumped in on this and was like, let sleeping dogs lie, or you're beating a dead horse, all these stupid things they were saying, basically trying to shut it down. Well, if it hasn't been disproven, then why not discuss it? Let people know, educate the public. How it's been
disproven.
So it just makes me wonder why the efforts to kind of shut down the conversation. That is what fuels conspiracies, and I understand.
Have you noticed that it's partisan?
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Nothing's ever partisan.
Well, that was another thing, and I will say this on the air right now. I have seen efforts to make the support for Assange saying that that's all just right-wing people, and that it could not be further from the truth.
I've seen that too.
We all know that's not true.
But no, I am as left as they come.
Right. So
I support Assange. # Unity for J. I'm on their whole movement for that. So no.
Well, I am too, but to play devil's advocate here, and I have respect for all those whistleblowers. But if, as you say, John, they're evidence that they're basing their analysis on stuff. Benny mentioned some hackers in Europe. I don't know who they are. Part of how he came to his conclusion, and they're relying on other people that supposedly know more. Show us that evidence. I mean, please, because otherwise we are going back and forth. And I understand if this Lisa person is just tired of it because she feels like, there's no more to discuss about it. But I think that the general public doesn't know enough about it and can't really even understand that what you said, that there's not enough evidence to prove one way or another. So, interesting, but oh well, I won't ask her anymore. But I would love to hear more. I also messaged the person that was, what's his name, Nathaniel Freitas, that was the lone investigator on the Nation report, basically kind of shooting down the forensicator analysis. So I messaged him actually on Keybase and said, would love to hear about your analysis. But I don't really expect him to answer, but I just think that they can't, no one should expect the public to just accept something one way or another without some evidence.
Exactly.
As much as possible, and have enough consensus with enough experts that know things to come to a reasonable conclusion. And I think it was just left to kind of drop. There were those 2 articles in the Nation, and then we know, our news media isn't doing a good job covering any of this. So that's why we're talking about it at 1:15 in the morning. So.
Oh my God, is it? Oh no.
Well, I'm on the East Coast.
It's only 11 here.
I always joke. You can ask everyone.
Send me out. It's only 11 here. I have so much to do tomorrow.
Oh, that's okay. I always joke with everyone here. See, I was born in Oregon, so I'm still on Pacific time, even though I live.
So it's, what, 10 there?
Even though I moved when I was like 2. Yeah, I'm still on Pacific time. So.
It works. I'm a morning person, though, so the
I'm
night
not.
times are hard for me.
I'm a morning person, like 3 a.m. morning. So.
I'm at 4 a.m., 4:30. That's when I wake up, like, almost naturally every morning, even on the weekends.
Oh.
It's sad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you should go to bed then. But it was very nice to meet you in person. And I meant to say it at the beginning, but we didn't really have enough people on anyway. I kind of felt weird about saying what I did in the chat on Uphill. Like, and also then kind of, we're really not about promoting a show here. This is really just discussion for anybody that wants to come on. So
and I need conversation.
Yeah.
I need conversation. I live in Utah where there's nobody to converse with that has a freaking clue about anything. My whole family is Trump supporters.
Oh.
I will go nuts if I don't have somebody to talk to.
Well, that's kind of how this all started. Before we were doing candidate interviews, that's how this sort of forum thing started, right?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brian Ramirez, are you Bram?
Yes.
Yay! I got to meet you. That's awesome. Nice to meet you, Bram.
Nice meeting you too.
So we'll try. We've been kind of off schedule for a bit. Like I said, I was in Broward County, and then I got back here. I don't know, the holidays, and I just kind of hit burnout. I think after the election too.
I think everybody did.
It was just so discouraging. So I'm trying to kind of get back in it. And what we would do typically is do something serious and more organized, like maybe twice during the week, and then Saturday night was this, where we just kind of, we might start off on a topic, but we usually end up covering about 6 or so.
Event frustration.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's kind of just whatever you want to talk about, but we kind of stick to these progressive issues, really. But yeah, I'm all about building a network. So
let's summarize.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Hacker leak. All we know is the data got out. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really all we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope we. Yeah. Okay. Well.
But I'm not for the Russian narrative. I don't even think it. Yeah. I'm just happy we got the information.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mitch said goodnight already, I think. All right.
Oh.
Or he dropped off the cat. Oh.
There you are. We thought you left us.
I thought Victor.
And your mute button's on. Mute.
Oh, Victor's wreaking havoc again.
Yeah, I was just trying to address something here on the side.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to get up and put my big butt in the camera, so.
Oh.
I'm here.
That's okay. You remember, you used to never even come on video for a long time.
No,
Mitch, remember that?
On again.
Oh, okay. Well, so, yeah, I mean, I think it's good. We have kind of a theme, but this is kind of how it goes. And,
I'm good with that. I love discussions. So
yeah, it's good.
I'm just happy you let me on.
It's really all inclusive. Unless you want to show porn, we're not really into
I'm
that.
not really into porn.
Good to know.
So
okay.
Not my thing.
We had that happen in the middle. We were trying to do an online town hall for a candidate.
With serious candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
And someone put porn on, like shared porn.
Mm-hmm. We know who it was too, but we'll not get into that now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the first time I came on, they were talking about Fukushima, and I just usually stay in the background, don't say anything. And I just saw so many things that were incorrect. I just said, I worked with radioactive objects.
You're talking Fukushima?
And I was saying, this is what happened. This is what's going on, and they were like, "He's a government plant."
Oh, right. When you wouldn't show your face.
Oh my God! I have so many questions for you. I'm not going to go into it now because we'd be up all night, and I'm too tired for that. But oh my gosh, I have so many questions.
We really should get more organized and.
Well, I have a very, very background.
I can tell you're very intelligent. You're very. Oh my gosh.
I solve problems, and I've done everything from Lego toys to nuclear fuel.
That's awesome. See, that's why I like you so much. It's like I see you on all these shows and different like small channels, and you're always blasting out this information that there's no way the average person would ever know.
And
anyway.
See, look at what our media, our fake journalism, fake news is failing. They should be. They have these experts on, but it's all about creating drama.
He should
they should have John and Mitchell on. You know.
Yeah, John. Yeah.
So you know what? We'll just do it. We'll hope.
John actually does have government experience, right? And with me, I have commercial experience where I have commercial contracts where I have commercial confidential things. I don't have a lot of military industrial complex secrets. So.
A lot. You don't have a lot. Okay. Just a few.
You know, well, you got to remember what they consider secrets.
Right.
A shipment of toilet paper is a military secret.
Sure.
What?
Yes. Well, how? Okay. What happened the night before the original attack in Washington D.C. when we had the first Gulf War, what I call the first Bush War, Bush War I. Some people call it Gulf Storm, but all of a sudden the Pentagon ordered every pizza in Washington D.C. You know, it's like when one was full and couldn't take any more orders, they'd roll over and call the next one, and they ordered something like 1 million pizzas or something, and one of the news channels picked it up. They go, the Pentagon is buying all the pizzas in town.
Oh my God!
Tonight's the night, and they started rolling out the coverage. Get the people in place. There's something going on. They're going on, you know. And so, you know, now there is a rule that you can't order carryout before a mission.
Wow.
One facility I made computers for. Well, I took over one, and then I made a second one. But we made computers, like servers for government purposes, and special computers for government purposes. Well, they didn't have any data on them. They treated from the moment we made them like there was.
Yeah.
We had to, you know, every step of the way make sure that an extra chip wasn't putting in, a tracking thing wasn't put in. I had to come up with my favorite thing I ever did, which millions of techs who ever worked with this type of computer will hate me till the end of time. But I came up with the most frustrating feature that if you ever opened the case, you could not figure out how to put it back together again.
That's nice.
And that's what I call human factor engineering, where it's the more evil side of engineering.
See, this is the
I wish
real.
I had those brains.
This is the real learning channel.
Yeah. So, but again, at that time, where our shipments, where, when, how many, had to be random, because they couldn't have anybody track where these special computers went to. In fact, our cover got blown. But before our cover got blown, we were underneath a TV factory. The TV factory was there just to, it was no longer profitable to make TVs in the United States. It was there, and it was where statistical process control started. So we'd have people come for tours to see, this is where Japanese manufacturing got it started, right here in the United States. And they'd come through, and they were going through and big tours going through upstairs of this wonderful TV factory. And we had all these steps that we had to go through, and then our cover got blown after a death and poorly handled.
That sounds like a story. Hey, we should get into, maybe next Saturday night, we should get into what's the facility in Utah that is like, you were talking about it not that long ago. Isn't that where they're like...
All the data center where they store all the government data. There's a huge facility out here for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I suspect that's not just data.
Yeah, probably not. But all I know is it uses a ton of water.
John's laughing, and I don't really understand why. But
why are you laughing?
I know, John, that I have to be careful what I say to not make you laugh.
It's using a ton of water.
It is using a... Why is that funny? I'm sorry, I don't get it.
Okay, this isn't classified. Not anymore. A long time ago, when they were using Cray supercomputers for analyzing.
Cray.
Okay. Did you have the one with the deionized water and the bubbles?
No, I had the one with the tuck and roll padding all around. It was a Super 2, Cray Super 2. It had.
What the hell are you talking about?
I don't know, but it's cool, isn't it? I love listening to it.
Centrifugal cooling system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you do things at extra high speeds, you have to remove a whole lot of heat.
Yeah.
So they were, for their time, they didn't have the technologies, the 18 nanometer traces and things that we do these days to cut down the heat. There they were doing everything with brute force. Everything was 5 volts and amp if they needed it. So it was just almost every filament was like a light bulb for the frequencies they needed. And the higher the frequency goes, you get this secondary thing called impedance that acts like resistance too, and you get more heat coming off. So in order to get the computers to the speed that needed to do the analysis, like to analyze a nuclear explosion or to listen to a million radio channels all at the same time, they made the Cray circular, stacked it, crunched down the stacks as close as they could, and made sure that there was no copper. You could not have any copper anywhere in this machine. And they put in water so pure that it did not conduct electricity.
Right.
And they flooded it with it. And they just pumped it as far as, and the water would be boiling sitting in there. They're just pumping the water faster and faster because wherever it boils, they weren't controlling the heat well enough. And so in water purification, Cray was one of the first where you really needed the unbelievably unnatural purity of water.
Huh. And imagine how many kids like to learn that kind of stuff. We really find that very cool. Like, and nobody knows.
So my understanding of water purification is from industrial process.
I see. Okay.
Not from because I worked in extremely high tech experimental frontline types of development.
Okay, just so I understand, the water they use for the data center, is it going to be contaminated or will it be fine? Because it doesn't sound as dangerous as like using it for fracking or something.
DI water is the most dangerous substance in the world, or universe.
What?
People don't understand what water is. Kelly, do we have time? Are you okay?
No, go ahead. I'm going to go.
I have so many questions on this.
Go ahead. It's fine. I just need to go make a tea.
I'm trying to pull up
one of these. I'm not sure.
Are drooping, so are mine, but I can't help. I am such a sucker for information. I love information. Always want more information.
Water is a really fun substance, and people's idea of what pure water is, they have no clue. They're totally, like I said, based on rumors. They don't understand what pure water is. Water that we see in the wild is not pure. In fact, even moderate purification of water kills fish.
So was I in danger when I went on a horseback ride up in the mountains and drank out of the stream?
Yeah, yeah. Your biggest danger in the mountains in the stream is cryptosporidium.
Mm.
Okay, well I didn't die.
Did you get diarrhea 2 days after?
No.
Some people do, and some people die from it. But dying from diarrhea is really unforgivable in this day and age.
Yeah, I bet. But no, I never had that problem. It was good tasting water, though. It was good.
Oh, contaminated water tastes excellent. That's why people like Himalayan salt so good.
I love Himalayan salt. What's wrong with Himalayan salt?
What makes it pink?
I don't know. Sulfur. What makes things pink?
Things that make things red. What makes things red? Iron.
Rust.
High levels of iron.
Iron, yeah. Rust, iron, yeah.
You need a certain level of iron to live. Get too much of it, and in males it leads to cancer. So everything has to be in a balance, and that's true with water. So drinking water
has to be a mixture of certain balances. Now, if you're a woman over 55 and you're taking or likely to take any medication like osteoporosis medication, you can't drink water. Spring water is bad for you. In fact, even tap water will reduce the effectiveness of osteoporosis medication 25 to 50%.
Oh, wow. What?
So you actually need water at different purities during different times of day, especially if you're on medications.
What about the water that they put? They changed the pH. You know, it's like alkaline water. Like
when I was in grad school, I took a pH, or not pH. I took a industrial toxicology class. We called it Murder 101.
Really?
But
no, but they sell this water. Have you heard of it? Like it's
oh yeah.
To pH balance you, and it's special water that we pay a fortune for.
I will quote Dr. Cesarati that taught the course. Oh my God, people are trying to raise their pH. You can't believe what that's going to do to their eyes.
Wait, you're not supposed to just balance your pH.
Balance your pH, yes. What's balanced pH? Nothing above 7.
Right.
Below, enough. You know, we want to get it close to 7.
But drinking not is doing what?
Well, you see, as you get to pH too high, you start getting precipitant,
right?
Little flakes falling out in your eye, forming.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't most people like more acidic, and it's better to have a lower?
We are kind of acidic, and again, you ever heard the term electrolytes?
Yes.
In your body. It's the same as electrolytes in a battery.
Right.
Okay.
They got that right in the matrix. We can work as batteries, but only if you stick zinc on one side of us and copper on the other.
Okay, so are you saying that we're wasting money on the special water?
Yes.
So what water should we get? Because I don't trust. I looked up our local water analysis, and it has so many things in it. It's bromide. It looks like a swimming pool. Like, I don't want to drink water from a swimming pool. It has like fluoride and bromide and bromine and this and that. It has so many things in it. I can't even tell you everything that's in it. So I'm afraid to drink our local water now.
Yeah. Do you want me to first ask a question that makes your mouth open, and the other two guys are going to start laughing? Have you ever smelled pee or chlorine when you're at a swimming pool?
Pee or chlorine? Which one?
Well, chlorine. Have you ever smelled chlorine when you're at a swimming pool?
Yes.
Did you know you can't smell chlorine?
Okay, then what are you smelling?
You're smelling the combination of pee and chlorine. That's a different.
Oh, nice.
That's disgusting. I'm never swimming again, ever.
That's awful.
There's no freaking way I'm going swimming if that's the case, because that's disgusting.
Go take a tablespoon or a teaspoon of chlorine bleach, put it in a quart of water right out of your sink. Well, might be a little bit bad, but take try that and tell me that you smell. Take a teaspoon of chlorine and put it in a quart of water, and tell me if you smell the chlorine. That's a higher concentration than what a swimming pool would be.
You won't smell it.
Hey, I live in the suburbs. We have toddlers like poop in the pool, and then you have to run and escape. Yeah,
that's true. Then go pee in that water and tell me if you smell it. Sorry, I got off track there.
It happens.
I think we were on the secrecy of toilet paper. If you know, and the Russians, another strange fact, the CIA and the KGB were both set up by the same person.
Really?
Yes, during World War II, or right before. I think it was during. KGB, same guy from U.S. or from the U.K. I don't remember if they called it U.K. back then. Set up both organizations to help the war effort, and they had a lot.
That's not surprising, really.
And a lot of their training was from the same swap at that time. Now they split; they're not together anymore. But they had a lot of the same base training, so they had a lot of the same push to go down the same side of the hill on things.
Right.
So if we're doing something, there's a chance that they might be doing something similar. Now that's not true. When we went into canopies for using polymers, plastic, for jet aircraft, we had so many bans on the materials that they could get that they couldn't use polymers in their canopies, and they used glass. And they came up with all these fantastic technologies for making glass canopies for jet aircraft. So
here, I have a picture. Just keep talking.
After the Cold War, we got all this tech on glass from.
I mean, let's face it; they're all working together.
They are, yes. That's cute.
Okay, and that could have been Trump and Putin, to be fair.
It could have been any of them.
Yeah,
they're all the same.
We know interchangeable. Our United States, our Army has a specific amount of toilet paper allocated per soldier, per base, per administrative unit. Like we're not an FOB, but we're the generals and people would be. They know what allocation of supplies to send to that place. So if you know how much toilet paper is going to a location, and you're observant, which of course the KGB would have been, and I forgot what the KGB is called now, but they just look at a table and say, "Oh, I saw a truckload of toilet paper going there. There's this many people." So the tracking of certain things, and there's things that when you're working with British people, you can't even ask them to ask you because they've been banned from saying certain words on any open communication for the rest of their life.
Yeah. It used to be like that with the organization that you mentioned earlier. You couldn't say those three letters until the movie Enemy of the State leaked them out.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, okay.
You couldn't say those letters together in any combination of the sentence. Yeah.
Which letters was that?
NRO. Now you can go to NRO.
Oh, yeah, I meant to ask you when you said that. Okay.
Well, and that's the other thing is, people are saying the CIA is doing this, the CIA is doing that. There are 26 organizations watching us that we know of.
Right.
And my rule of thumb is if we know it, there's already something to replace it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Wow.
So
I think we should get a little more I mean, this is fun. We should do, Saturday night open, but we should get a little more organized and let you do a science channel.
Yeah, that would be good.
And a tech channel. I don't know, something like that. My daughter's been wanting to do one. She's 14. She wanted to do a good news channel because we were talking about how there's always just nothing but bad news. I thought that was kind of cool, but she'd be all about the science stuff. If it was interesting, that's the problem. It's just not
Rich can
boring.
Bring that. Has so much interesting information. It's just blows your mind.
Yeah, just promise no eyeshadow tutorials, please.
Oh, no useless information.
I have
unless you're going to talk about the science of the eyeshadow, like powder or something.
Okay, come on, Mitch. Now, we know that you would do that, right?
Yeah.
You would do the eyeshadow tutorial, right?
I have to trim my eyelashes. They get so long.
Well, you could talk about all the chemicals in the makeup, probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of chemicals in makeup. A lot.
Yep. Billion-dollar industry.
Well, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I worked with some scientists to develop a sensor to put in your underwear
to let you know when you're going to have a serious bout of diarrhea from irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease. And, well, it's bad.
I was going to say, they make things already with sensors and underwear, but anyway.
Why would you? But don't you already feel it in your stomach if you're going to have a problem?
No. When you've got this...
is this for, like, wartime or something? What's the point?
No, this is from now, from people eating organic food that's contaminated with paratuberculosis avians. I think in the United States it's avians paratuberculosis, but since I was dealing with the European, I'm getting more used to the paratuberculosis avians.
Organic food. Yeah, you were saying something like that on the chat, because I go back and watch chats.
I mean,
bad that way.
She convinced me right away. Immediately, it won't touch organic.
You need to do a show on that. Okay, we don't have time because I got to go to bed, but we need a show on that organic food thing because there's a lot of people.
But when you say something about like that to organic, there are so many people that immediately cyst right on you and just, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear it. All lies. Your government plan.
I want information. I buy organic food. I want to know why. Why do people just shut off the information like they think they know it all already and they just like put a wall up? I know it all. That's it. Why do people do that? Why?
Lazy.
Yeah.
Mostly. I think people want to turn it off and go watch the game. I mean, they're just people like that. They
don't want to know. They're
already in their camp and it takes too much work. Because it does take a lot of work to dig into all this stuff, you know?
Yeah. I was trying to help Graham Elwood get some people to his Chicago show.
Mm-hmm.
So I offered to do a Fukushima talk out there before his show.
Very cool.
It's an extra incentive for people. I don't know yet.
It's still coming? The one that's coming up, the Chicago show.
It's going to be in February.
Okay. He's coming here in May.
Yeah, I won't be able to come out to that one.
Why not? Come on, come to Utah. It'll be fun.
Well, that's the other cool thing about this. Look, we're all over the place and on here talking. It's very cool.
I mean, from this basement, I'll pick up and collaborate with somebody in Europe or. I think the worst I've done was Australia.
The worst. Okay.
Longest distance.
Okay. All right. Well,
really,
I think we're all fading really fast now, except for Mitchell, who could talk science all freaking night.
I am just ready to fall asleep. If you can see my eyes, I was in bed, and the reason I just kind of hit the snooze a few times even to get here.
I was staying up because I saw her say that. I saw Kelly on the chat.
Oh, he was pushing my buttons.
And inviting people on. And I'm like, I could stay up. I can do it. I'm such a morning person. It's really hard for me to stay up this late.
Well, we'll be doing, we have a couple things coming. John, you were going to do a thing with John Lancelot. And I've got sort of an anti-war panel I was going to put together with a candidate, Sandra Hicks, and Claire Connolly. That's her name. She's in Australia. She does Hello Humans. I think she would still do it. It's been a while, but I was going to do that. And then we did have one candidate who's very entertaining, and Pat Cody. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, Pat Cody.
Yeah, well, he's been on like twice, I think. They're so funny.
He's awesome.
He and John Michael Williams together, who was the first candidate that jumped up and said he was going to run again. On January 1st, I think we're going to do a show with the two of them, or discussion. So that should be fun. But
we've been 1st next year?
No, he announced on the 1st of January that he's going to run again. And I was kind of, I don't know, just hadn't really reached out to candidates. Because most of the candidates we talked to, they knew that their odds were very slim and they were planning to run again in 2020. But I just haven't reconvened. I think everybody's it's January and everybody's kind of burned out a bit, I think. So, but we won't stop. Take a little pause, but we'll keep going. So I think maybe collaborating, there are a lot of good people out there doing, and we really are all on the same page. we've each got different areas maybe that we know more about or can speak to.
Focus on, but that's what you have to do because not one person can focus on everything.
Yeah.
No, it's overwhelming.
Except chemtrails.
Oh. Right. Okay. Well, good night, everybody. Good to see you all, and thank you, John,
for having me.
Absolutely, it was fun. Good to meet you, and thank you, John, and everybody.
Anytime.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.